Blog Talk Radio.
Greetings. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to the broadcast. The C.O.W.S, Gus T Renegade, sharing constructive information about racism and hopefully giving you information that will help you replace the system of racism with a system of justice. Again, check out the blog. The blog is racism-notes.blogspot.com. Again, racism-notes.blogspot.com. You can check out the blog. Hopefully I'll be adding some new material as soon as possible. Today's program, one of my listeners requested that I get today's guest on the program. He felt she had a lot of great information to share. Sent me her contact information, blog, everything. He was very helpful in me getting our guest on the program today. Our guest, lot of experience working against racism. She's been doing workshops, lectures, projects, experiments for well over 30 years. When I spoke with her yesterday, she said she is more determined and disgusted than ever about racism since she's been doing this work for so long. Real privilege to have her on the program. She did the pioneering study, Blue Eyes and Brown Eyes, where people were divided, ultimately categorized and mistreated based on eye color to replicate the discrimination and mistreatment that happens because of racism. Our guest for today's program is Mrs. Jane Elliot. Mrs. Elliot, are you with us?
Yes, I certainly am. You may be sorry, but I am. You may not like that person who gave you this advice again. You may stop talking to him.
When I spoke with Mrs. Elliot yesterday, she said she was coming with no holds barred. She was going to be speaking honestly, and she said she was probably going to disrupt quite a few listeners Sunday afternoon or evening. So we are definitely prepared and ready for her to speak honestly about racism. For folks who might not be familiar with the Blue Eyes, Brown Eyes study or just who Jane Elliot is, could you give us some of your background information, please?
Oh, well, I was teaching third grade the day after Martin Luther King Jr. was killed, and I get sick to my stomach when I think of that day, to this day. And that was a long time ago, and I didn't know how to explain why anybody would shoot Martin Luther King Jr. or why Martin Luther King Jr. was out in the street. I didn't know how to explain that to my students. When I asked them what they knew about people, about blacks, which is the term we used at that time, those students in all-white, all-Christian Riceville, Iowa, knew every negative stereotype you have ever heard about black people, and some of them said things that I had never heard. And that day, and every time I did the exercise after that, I said to the students, how do you know these things are true? And without exception, they said, because my dad said so. And I did that exercise in the Riceville School from 1968, practically every year, until 1984. When I left the classroom and went to using the exercise with so-called adults in corporations all over the United States and in other countries. I was appalled at how comfortable my third graders, and my good Christian third graders, were to say ugly, ugly things about people with whom they had never had an experience. The things I learned that day were so shocking that when I told the teachers, I went down to the teacher's lounge at noon to tell the other 2 third-grade teachers what was happening in my classroom. I needed some support because such ugly things were happening. And I was telling these third-grade teachers, there were a number of teachers in the teacher's lounge, including the 2 third-grade teachers. One was about 54, and the other was 60 at the time. And when I finished telling those teachers the effect that being discriminated against on the basis of eye color was having on my all-white third graders, the older of those, like the 54-year-old third-grade teacher said, I don't know how you have time for all that extra stuff. It's all I can do to teach reading, writing, and arithmetic. Well, she hadn't taught reading, writing, and arithmetic yet. She might as well have done the extra stuff. The other one said, and I'll never forget it as long as I live, there are sounds you can't scratch out of your mind's ear. I can't scratch out of my mind's ear the sound my father died, the day my little sister died in our house. I can't scratch that out of my mind's ear. And that's the effect that that statement from that woman had on me. I've never been able to forget it. And I've never been able to forgive it. She said, I don't know why you're doing that exercise. I thought it was about time somebody shot that son of a bitch.
Whoa.
This was a teacher. This was a third-grade teacher who had been molding young children's minds for years. And this was her reaction to the killing of Martin Luther King, Jr. I had thought that I would stop the exercise at noon because too many ugly things were happening in my classroom. But after that woman said that, there was no way I could stop that exercise. I determined in that instant that no student of any age will ever leave my presence with those attitudes unchallenged. I will never allow a student to leave my classroom and be, when they leave, as ignorant about racism as that 60-year-old woman was. And no student leaving my classroom has ever left as ignorant as that 60-year-old teacher was. If I accomplish nothing else in my life, every time I'm with somebody who makes those remarks, and I was with somebody who did that again 3 days ago, who made the very same kinds of remarks, and they are people over 75. And I thought, no, I will not listen to this from you any more than I will listen to that from a third grader in 1968 or from a 60-year-old woman in 1968. That day is indelibly, it is indelibly there on my brain. I will never forget as long as I live. And if I can't forget that, how in the devil do we white people say to people of color, why don't you just get over it? And that's what we're saying right now. It's over. Forget it. It's not over. You dare not forget it. Those who forget the mistakes of the past are doomed to repeat them. We must not forget it. And don't for one moment think that having a black president means that we are no longer racist in this country.
Well, wait a minute. I'm just playing the non-white adversary.
Don't do this to me.
We've made a lot of progress. There were a ton of white people who voted for President Obama. We
remember what the choices were? Do you remember what the choices were? Sarah Palin or Barack Obama? Give me a break. That was no choice. That was a fiasco. What in the world are you talking about? That was no choice. The Republicans did not want to win that election, and so they put on the ballot someone who would guarantee them a loss. And that's what they did, and that's what happened. And we're lucky that it happened. I am so glad they were afraid. I am so glad the Republicans were afraid to go into that election intending to win. They knew they couldn't clean up the mess they'd made. It isn't the first time they've done that. You don't remember when Ronald Reagan was going out of the White House. You don't remember when George Bush came in and was a president for 4 years, and then the mess was still there, and he ran a very, very lackluster campaign, and so we allowed somebody who wasn't a George Bush to win because they had a mess they couldn't clean up. That's my opinion. Nobody needs to agree with it. To those of you who are listening and who are now incensed, I am telling you, you don't have to agree with me. And luckily for you, you don't even have to listen.
But so you would say that even though we have and using this purposely, non-white person who is president of the United States of America, that in no way, shape, or form means that racism has been licked.
Oh, for heaven's sake, they hanged him in effigy in Georgia last week. Last week, they hanged the President of the United States in effigy. Does that sound like racism to you?
Well, people complained about President Bush, former President Bush.
I can't imagine why.
They complained about him, and they made ugly signs and things. They did a lot of the exact same things when he.
They didn't hang him in effigy. We reserve that for members of the black race for the most part. We have a history where people of color are concerned that it is not the same as the history that we have with white people. We complain about our white leaders when they make mistakes, and certainly they make mistakes. We do not generally hang them in effigy. There is a history of that hanging business that is not the same for white people as it is for black people. No matter how big your mistake is, that is not what we generally do or have done in this country where white people are concerned. What we should be saying is where colorless people are concerned, right? Because if you're going to refer to black people as non-white, then Harry Golden, do you remember Harry Golden's writings? Harry Golden he wrote a newspaper called the South Carolina Israelite. He was a Jewish person. He had a newspaper. And in his newspaper, he would say things like, if we're going to have fountains marked whites only, and that if we're going to have an article in the newspaper that says the colored elks met on Tuesday, then the next week we have to say the colorless elks met this Tuesday. We are very casual with the way we use the language, but very precise with the way we use the language and hanging where white people are concerned.
Wow. Again, Mrs. Jane Elliot, our guest on the program today. She's sticking true to form. She said she was going to be candid, no holds barred, which is exactly what we want and look forward to here at the Cows. I think you said it. I just want to make sure our listeners are clear. You are a white woman. Is that correct?
I am a non-colored person. I am a person with no color. If you're going to use non-white, then I have to use non-color.
Okay. White,
and so I'm colorless. I don't want to be colorless any more than you want to be called colored. I don't want to be called colorless, but I understand that eventually the terms that we use become offensive to the people who are not allowed to choose what they're going to be identified as. And so we have to keep changing the words. And we used to use colored. It took me about 3 years living here in a senior community to get the man across the street to stop using the word colored. It took me 3 years, but I didn't have anything else to do. You're in a senior community. What else is there to do? So that's what I did. It took me 3 years, and I got it done. But you see, we carry over all this garbage, and we think it's over. But it ain't over till the fat lady sings. And we are still where we were. We are in better shape than we were 50 years ago. We aren't in as good shape as we were 30 years ago. Because we were talking about racism then. Now we've stopped talking about it because we white people, and I speak for myself, but I also speak about a lot of white people because I know us. Unfortunately, I know us, and I know us fairly well. We don't want to show our ignorance, and we don't want to say something that might be perceived as racist, so we say nothing. We would be better off to take a chance on saying something and having it misinterpreted, and then you can talk about what it is that is objectionable about what you said. But if you never say anything, then you never find out what it is that's wrong with what you said or why it might be, why somebody might take exception to it. So you stop communicating. We have pretty much stopped communicating about race in this country, in my opinion and in my experience.
Very interesting. This program, the C.O.W.S, acronym context of white supremacy, I have unfortunately concluded that we're in a global system of racism, white supremacy, and the definition that I use for both racism and white supremacy is as follows. A global system of people who classify themselves as white and are dedicated to mistreating and or subjugating everyone in the known universe whom they classify as not white. Do you believe that such a system exists and that is an accurate definition?
I think that's a pretty accurate definition, but I think you've left out a couple of things. I think you've left out power. And in this country, and I also think you need to remember that we are responsible for what happens in this country, and we can't change other countries until we change this one. People say to me, why don't you go overseas? Hey, if I want to fight a battle, I don't have to go overseas. I have battles right here. All the battles I can handle here. But what you've left out is power. White people have power worldwide. And that the real fear in this country today is that, and it's going to happen, so folks get used to it, white people are going to be in the minority by the year, 2040?
Somewhere. That's
maybe sooner than that. Yeah. And a whole lot of white people are really scared to death that the people of color are going to do to them as they have done to people of color. They're scared to death that if people of color get power, they'll treat us the way we have treated them. You wouldn't have to worry about that if you'd start now, if white people would start now to change the way they treat people of color. If white people would start now to share power instead of trying to keep it all to themselves, it isn't going to work. We are going to be in the minority. We've got to start now to change the way we treat people. We in the United States have to change our country first. I am absolutely terrified by a group in this country called The Family. Have you read the book The Family? Have you read the book The Family, Gus?
Can you repeat that question, please?
Are you still here?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Am I boring you, Gus?
Not at all. Not at all.
And there's a book called The Family, and it is a discussion of a large group of people in this country who are determined to turn this country and the world into an all-Christian world. I don't think we have the right to tell other people how to worship. And if you haven't read the book, you need to get it and read it. It is one of the most frightening things I have ever read. I would advise everybody listening to this program to read it. Because
Can we get the author?
What? The author, I think his last name is, now you've done it. Now I have to go out and look for the author. I was just going to sit here and do this thing, and now I have to get up and walk around. Now I have to look for the book. I usually have it in my hand because I'm so angry all the time I'm reading it. It's a good thing you didn't call while I was reading it, because I get really nasty while I'm reading this thing. I think his name is Shepler. I'm not sure. Just a minute. Here it is. This is such a tiny house, I ought to be able to find anything in a hurry. Charlotte. Jeff Charlotte.
Charlotte.
Jeff, Sharlet. One of the most terrifying books I've ever read, and we all have to be aware of what this is all about. We have members of Congress. When you talk about worldwide racism, you need to realize that according to this author, who has researched this thing very, very thoroughly, members of our Congress have been going to Uganda to tell the leader of the Ugandan people how to write legislation that will enable the people in Uganda to incarcerate or execute gays and lesbians who can't be cured.
Mm.
Does that bother you at all?
It is unjust and should not be happening.
But just unjust? It ought to be considered illegal, indecent,
I think it is.
immoral, unacceptable, and for American congressmen to be engaged in that kind of activity ought to guarantee them that they won't be in Congress much longer.
Do you feel that there is any sort of, I guess people are upset about this and are looking for the people who are doing this to see if they can get them out of office, or?
Not enough of them. You hadn't heard about it, had you?
This is the first I've heard of it, yes, ma'am.
Does that bother you at all?
It does not surprise me. It does not surprise me. I see that sort of thing happen frequently, where accurate information about those sort of things, about injustices, that information is a little harder to get. That's not the thing that people are talking about on a consistent basis. So
we're so busy thinking about Tiger Woods that we don't have time to think about things like that.
That's right.
You know, our minds are constantly being directed to things that are absolutely unimportant to society as a whole. And but we ask for that. We let our attention be diverted. And we need to stop letting that happen.
When I spoke, excuse me, when I spoke with you just before the program, I referenced myself, and I would be referencing the people in Uganda. I would be referencing them as non-white as well. You said that you did not think that was I won't even try and paraphrase. Can you share with our listeners your thoughts on my use of the term non-white?
Well, you didn't call yourself non-female.
Right.
See, if you don't call yourself non-female, then why would you call yourself non-white? You are identifying yourself by comparing yourself to the power group. That gives the power group more power. I don't think that's a good idea. What?
You said it was comparing yourself to the
yes,
power
you are.
group?
You are contrasting or comparing, either one, yourself to the power group. That is admitting that that's where the power is, and that you have no identity other than as you are compared to the group in power. I think that's a bad idea. I think that if you're non-white, you are also non-Asian. Are you non-Asian? Maybe. You don't have to be, but are you?
That would be an accurate statement.
So if you are non-Asian, why don't you call yourself non-Asian? Because that isn't an important group to you. They ought to be, but they aren't. But they aren't the power group in this country. The thing that probably is the most, you have a right to identify yourself as you choose to. And people of color fought long and hard to get that right. To be allowed to call themselves black, for heaven's sake, took years. And now that they have that, we are now encouraging them to take on another title, but a title that is all about how you are contrasted to white people. I think it's unfortunate that a group of people of color are going to choose that, but they have the right to do that. But then they'll have to live with the consequences of that. And I think I would think there's a better way. You see, if we're going to do that, then I am non-colored. I would have to call myself non-male. I would have to call myself non-thin, non-tall, non-young. And those are all negatives. You're identifying yourself with a negative. I hate to see that happen.
You said,
does that make sense to you? Does what I'm saying make sense to you?
It is very lucid. It makes logical sense what you're saying. I just wanted to make sure I heard you correctly. You said that the black people in this particular area of the world are being, encouraged to pick up a new title. Do you think that black people are being encouraged to pick up the term non-white, or is it another term they're being encouraged to pick up now as opposed to black?
I don't know who has come up with that term, but terms become insults because they have been used in an insulting way, oftentimes. And then the people about whom those terms are being used have to change the terms in order to stop taking the insult or the perceived insult. And that's the reason a lot of these, blacks used to be called a whole lot of other different names. And a group of people of color got together, Asians, Pacific Islanders, Native Americans, Chicanos, Latinos, group of people got together and said, we are tired of being called colored. And that's how they came up with people of color. Now, I have a feeling that what's happening now is they're tired of being called people of color. So we're going to come up with a new term. I hope they can come up with a better term than non-white. I have a problem with it, but you have the right to, and all people of color have the right to decide what their group wants to be called. That's not up to white people. We have done that. White people have taken that on for themselves long enough. So whatever you want to be called, that's up to you. But then you live with that term, and I think you're going to see in a very short time that non-white becomes a pejorative. Somebody will fix that for you.
Okay. Well, I have heard that position before, both from non-white people and white people who said that they pretty much expressed the same argument that you laid out in terms of the logic of why you don't think that is a correct term to use. It would not be in the best interest of non-white people to use that term.
Thank you very much. You just made my day.
I try.
Yeah, you are one of the most trying men I've ever talked to. Yeah. Keep trying me. Try my patience. Go ahead. Yeah, I'm glad that somebody else doesn't like that term, because I find that very plantation, quite frankly.
What do you mean when you say plantation?
It sounds like Big Daddy is telling what you ought to be called, and if anybody's going to do that, it ought to be Big Mama, right? I mean, that's what it sounds like to me, and I really don't. I have a problem with that term. Lots of people, I suspect, wouldn't. I would.
That's interesting. As I've heard this before. There was a non-white male, a black male on the program in November, Dr. Robert L. Williams. He pretty much articulated the same sentiment that you are sharing with us today, and several other folks that I've spoken with about this matter. Actually, you are the first white person who has expressed these feelings about the term non-white, but I have encountered other non-white people who have shared your exact same line of reasoning.
Well, most white people would find that the majority. I'm going to make a broad blanket statement here, but most white people would see nothing wrong with that, because after all, that's what you are, isn't it? And that way, they don't have to identify. They don't have to say, well, just exactly what does that mean? They can just call you non-white, and isn't that too bad? I will never, and you have to be careful, because this is the kind of mentality that you deal with in this country on a daily basis. I will never forget the day the woman said to me at a workshop in a major corporation in the United States, I don't dislike black people. When I see a black person, I just say to myself, there but for the grace of God go I.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
But she didn't think she needed diversity training. Wow. I did a film in if anybody listening to this thinks this isn't a universal problem. I did a program, we made a film in the UK several months ago. We did the exercise with a group of people in the UK, and they were lovely people, I'm sure. No, I'm not sure, but they said they were lovely people, so I guess I'll have to take their word for it. But very shortly after I started working with them, I knew they lied to me. I split the class according to eye color and abused the blue-eyed people, and there was a teacher in that group who was just determined that they have lots of those colored children in her school, and she treats all her children alike, and she sees no reason for anybody to be working in the area in which I'm working today, because those problems are all over. Okay, well, so during the lunch break, she was talking to other members of her group, the blue-eyed group. They had to eat alone, and the cameraman caught her saying, one of our little black students got a cut on her cheek last week, and it was blade open. It was a gash, and I was surprised to see that she was pink under the skin, just like we are.
Wow. This was last year, you said?
This was 3 months ago.
3 months ago. Wow.
And nobody told me that she had said that. They had it on camera, but they didn't tell me. if they had told me that she had said that, it would have been absolutely a lot of fun for me and none whatsoever for her. When they told me that had been said, I was absolutely flabbergasted. I said, you can't mean she didn't really say that. Hey, we've got it on film. Now,
wow.
I've gotten a lot of emails from people who saw that. They showed the film on UK television. And I've gotten a lot of emails from people who said that white teacher should have been sacked on the spot. Well, I didn't know what they were talking about. I didn't know I knew they should sack her, but I didn't know what she had done. And then they got the information that that's what she had said.
Wow.
We're talking 2010.
Mm.
We're talking about a teacher in 2010 who has the future of little children in her hands all day, every day. Children of all colors. Now, how well do you think she's treating those little children?
I suspect she's mistreating the non-white children.
Would you? You suspect she's mistreating whom?
The non-white or so-called colored black children, I suspect.
You mean the children of color?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. We'll get there eventually. You haven't been listening, have you?
I have. I've been listening.
I had no idea she would say a thing like that. That's a woman who she had to be at least, 53 years old.
Wow.
And that's the statement she made about the students in her classroom. She didn't realize that they were pink under the skin just like the rest of us.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So if you think it's over and if you think it isn't universal, come with me.
Wow. Again, our guest for today's program, Mrs. Jane Elliot. You can check out her website as well, JaneElliot.com, Elliot with 2 T's. You were talking about, problems and people who are, it looks like, practicing racism a little closer to home. Did you catch the comment from Senator Reid where he said, I think he was talking about President Obama, and he said that President Obama, he got elected because he was lighter complexion, he didn't talk in the regular slang that black people use, and that he was a well-behaved, overall good Negro, and he used the term Negro specifically.
He did. I didn't know that was part of his statement.
Yes, he used the term Negro specifically. Are you familiar with any part of what the senator...
I didn't hear that whole statement. I would have a lot of trouble with him using the term Negro. A lot of trouble, because that's just an indication of his stupidity. However, he's right in that white people were willing, as Barack Obama said in his book, Dreams of My Father, I found that if I didn't confront white people and was polite and calm, this is paraphrasing it, that I could get along with them. He knew that. Barack Obama knows exactly what he has to do and what he had to do to get accepted by white people and to get them to vote for him. But once again, if it had been anyone but John McCain and Sarah Palin running against him, he probably wouldn't have been elected to the presidency.
Wow. Wow. Do you think
even though he belongs in the presidency, in my estimation, Barack Obama is the best thing that has happened to this country in a very, very long time. And I pray to every deity I can think of, and I can think of lots of them, that he stays alive. Because we need Barack Obama. We need Barack Obama for lots of reasons. We need him so that I watched what happened after he was elected, and I saw young black men walking tall, whom I had never seen walking tall before, walking tall and proud, and it was as if they were saying, see, we can do it. We are capable. It was the turnaround in the stance of the young blacks that I saw on the street, and I've been to several cities since this thing happened. It was just remarkable and absolutely beautiful. And I thought, we could have had this. We could have had this attitude all these years, if we had appreciated what we have in the black community, we could have had this. There have been many black men and women, people of all kinds, who could have qualified for the presidency. And now we have the opportunity to have real change in this country, because now we know it can happen. We know it can happen. I think that's one of the things that white people are scared about. They found out that it can happen. And if there's one, maybe there's more. Oh, my, now what are we going to do?
Do you think that the part of the statement where he said that if President Obama had been darker complexion, like the complexion of Dick Gregory or the complexion of President Obama's father, do you think white people would have supported him then?
I doubt. See, I think that people who say we don't see color in this country anymore are out of their minds. I think we do see color. And I think we have been taught to react negatively to color. And I think until we get over that, we're going to have to deal with racism. We don't have a colorblind society. People keep saying to me, I think what we need, and old George Bush used to say, what we need is a colorblind society. No. The paint companies would hate that, and so would the auto manufacturers. We do not need a colorblind society. What we need is a society that is no longer blinded by color. And that's what we're living in today. And anyone who thinks that we aren't only has to look at the prison statistics and the poverty statistics and the unemployment statistics and the educational level statistics, and you'll find that indeed we are a society that has been taught to be blinded by color, to see color first. First thing you see, and you can either react to it negatively or positively, and that's a choice you make. Nobody's born a bigot. You have to learn bigotry. And in this country, we teach bigotry from before the time you're born. We teach bigotry prenatally.
Wow.
I've been in the hospital with black women when I was delivering children, or my own children. I saw the way they were treated, and I saw the way I was treated. And the two things were very dissimilar.
Whoa. What differences did you observe?
I observed that whenever I turned my light on, there was somebody there. When they turned their light on, there was somebody out smoking a cigarette someplace. Wow. I watched them come in, have their families come in to visit with them and be shooed out and be treated with great disrespect. Just a couple of years ago, at a hospital, a university hospital that my niece works at, a black woman had been in the hospital for a couple of days in a 2-bed ward. They brought a white woman in and put her in the other bed, and immediately her family came in and protested that their loved one was in the room with a GD N-word.
Whoa.
They went down and complained to the administrator, and they moved the black woman out of the bed, out of the room.
Wow.
My niece told me about that, and I said, what the is the matter with your people? Well, she said, what should we have done? We wanted to get her out of that situation. I said, you should have moved the white woman. Oh, she said, we never thought of it. You want to call that racism? I called that racism. That's blatant racism. Move the black woman out because the white people who got there 3 days after she'd been in the hospital didn't want their loved one to be in the room with an N-word.
Wow.
Do I sound angry?
A little bit.
Yeah. Do I sound insane?
No. I think what you're saying makes logical sense. Very
But
logical.
what I'm saying is insane. To treat people that way is insane. Make no mistake about that. People say to me, how can you put those little white children in that 3rd grade classroom through that blue-eyed, brown-eyed exercise for 2 days? How can you do that to them? How can you experiment with children? Number one, I'm not experimenting with children. I'm doing a learning experience or a learning exercise with 3rd graders. And I found out the first time I did it that what I created in my classroom in Riceville, Iowa, for 2 days was a microcosm of American society. What I do with my 3rd graders, or did with my 3rd graders at that time for 2 days, is what this nation does with its citizens of color for a lifetime. If what I'm doing is an experiment, then what we are doing in this country is an experiment, and we ought to put a stop to it.
Wow. Jane Elliot,
soft-spoken, gentle person.
Not quite.
That's what you were going to say, isn't it?
Wow.
Sorry, I had to give up being gentle and sweet and kind about this. Because if you speak softly, people mistake softness for weakness, and they don't listen to you.
Now, when I spoke with you yesterday, you said that, I wrote it down, you said that you are more determined and disgusted now, and you talked about people being upset with the things that you say and the way that you speak about racism, white supremacy. Have you encountered a lot of people who are angry with the work that you do or feel like what you're doing is a waste of time or unnecessary?
No, they feel like it's threatening. They feel like they're being accused of something. Well, okay. If the shoe doesn't fit, don't put it on. If this isn't you that I'm talking about, don't worry about it. Just say, those people ought to stop what they're doing. Unfortunately, we all know that what I'm saying applies to all of us, practically all of us white folks. Every time I do the exercise, somebody says in the group, well, some white person, a brown-eyed person, speaks up. And the brown-eyed people are always on the top in the exercise that I do with adults, but I reverse it when I use it with third graders or junior high people or high school people. Some brown-eyed person always says, well, I don't think this is fair. And I say, wait a minute. If you, and I get the brown-eyed people ready before the blue-eyed people come into the room where we're going to do the exercise. So I don't think this is fair. And I say, wait a minute. If you, one person, out of the 40 people who are here, protest this will not be reality for the United States. Because if one out of 40 white people, and there will be only 16 maybe brown-eyed people, if 1/16 of all the white people in the United States stood up and refused to tolerate racism, do you think we could end racism?
And what do they say?
Well, it hadn't occurred to them. It never occurs to them that young college kids put a stop to the Vietnam War. Some of them died to do it. Many of them died in the Vietnam War as military. But children, young people in this country went out in the streets and protested the Vietnam War and made a lot of noise. Young people elected Barack Obama. He got the start with young people in Iowa. Young people know how to use the net. They know how to use technology. I don't think McCain's people were very good at that. And Barack Obama's people were absolutely wonderful at it because they were young and they had been raised with technology. There are so many reasons that he won that election. None of them are because we are no longer racist in this country. In my estimation. Could I be wrong? Oh, it's a possibility. But we aren't going to entertain that possibility, are we? Because you see, only non-white people are wrong. White people are invariably right because they tell us so.
When I spoke with you yesterday, one of the other things that I found just fascinating, you said that you like to tell it like it is, particularly now. People don't listen when you try and soft shoe it and sugarcoat what racism is and how it works. You like to just tell it how it is and upset people. You said that black people do not like to hear honest dialogue about racism. Can you share about that, please?
Some black people don't. Some black people are saying, look, we're farther ahead than we were when we are ahead of where my grandmother was. Don't rock the damn boat. And I can understand that. I absolutely understand that. But if nobody rocks the boat, things are not going to get better because while this may be better than it was, while blacks may have it better than their grandparents had it, many of them don't have it as good as I have it. I as a non-black person. And until people of color have it as good as colorless people have it, somebody has to keep on saying, look, you may have made it, but we have reinstituted slavery in the United States of America. I don't think people are aware of that, and I don't think they want to talk about that. But if you put a person in prison and you make them work and you only give them enough to, and you only feed, house, and clothe them, and you make them work, what do you call that? What do you call that? You call that slavery. And if you don't know anything about the industrial prison complex in this country, you ought to take a look at it. They're trying to privatize the prison industry, which means that people will make money off incarcerated people, a vast number of which are young black males. Now, when you can pick somebody up for driving while black and incarcerate them and then make them work for a pittance, you have reinstituted slavery in your country. And a whole lot of us, a whole lot of people don't want to think about that, and a whole lot of black people say, just shut that woman up. Just, if somebody could just shut her up. Because we don't want to talk about that. We don't, Barack Obama says, don't make white folks angry. Don't make these white folks angry. Well, I've been threatened with death so often that that's just a joke anymore. You know, and I make people really, really angry. Because they don't want to hear that no, things aren't perfect, but they could be. They could be good. They could be so much better than they are. And I expect them to be better. And I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to quit ranting until they are better. And I'll die ranting. I understand that. I'm perfectly aware of that. But now when I go on college campuses, I say to the people in the audience, look, I know some of you people, and I've had them say this to me, I know some of you want to kill me. Don't shoot me on this campus, because if you do, you'll make a martyr out of me, and then you might have to spend the rest of your life celebrating Jane Elliot Day once a year. Now think about that. And then it's like, oh, we don't want to do that. So they keep me alive on your campus. And they do. And I know, in my heart of hearts, I know that that's the only reason I stay alive on some of those campuses. This is not, I would love to be able to say, oh, things are so much better than they were 50 years ago, and they are better than they were 50 years ago, but they aren't good enough. Nowhere near good enough. Maybe you're satisfied with where it is. Are you satisfied?
Wow.
Are you satisfied, Gus?
Not at all.
Then things aren't good enough for you, are they?
Not at all.
Thank you very much.
Not at all. That is.
I don't want you to be satisfied. I don't mean I just want you to go around being dissatisfied. I just want you not to be satisfied with the status quo, because it is not the way it's being described to you. And I had no idea. I really thought we were a lot better off than we were until I talked to this group last week and heard these insane statements that I had stopped hearing. Of course, people don't say those things around me, because most people in my group, the group of people I know what I do, so they know better than to make those stupid statements around me. But the people I was talking to the other day didn't know. And you see, here's another part of the problem. White people feel perfectly comfortable saying those things when there isn't a presence of a white person, because they're quite certain that that person is going to agree with them. So they feel safe. Yeah, they feel safe saying these ugly things. And then when somebody like me says, are you out of your mind? I thought we stopped saying those things many, many years ago. And then they get all upset because they thought they could trust me. And some of them have said to me, well, I thought I could trust you. And I say, as my son-in-law says, you got to know your audience. And you can't be sure that I'm not one of those radicals. So you need to be careful what you say. I have been, my mother kicked me out of the family many years ago because she said, Jane, stay away from here. Nobody's comfortable when you're around. They aren't comfortable when I'm around. You can't pull out your banjo and play, I don't want her, you can have her, she's too fat for me, with me in the room. Because I won't tolerate it. Because my sisters-in-law and my nieces are some of those who are not thin. So I was kicked out of the family because I simply wouldn't keep my mouth shut. You can't do that kind of ugly thing in my presence, because insomuch as ye have done it unto one of these my brethren, so have ye done it unto me.
Well, I want to make sure our listeners catch that, because I thought that was incredibly important. You said that these people make these comments around you, or I guess around other white people, and they feel safe. Would it be accurate? Would it be accurate to say that in a system of racism, white supremacy, that racists, if they assume that if you are white, you are also racist?
That's right. They assume that it's all right to say these things because we all think alike. And everybody knows that the way they think is right, because we aren't racist, because we said so. The whole thing is it reaches a point where it's just comical. It isn't comical to be on the receiving end of it. But to watch it happen and then have somebody say, well, I didn't make a racist statement. And you're biting, I bite my tongue a lot because my husband would just as soon have friends. I don't care, but he'd just as soon have friends. I bite my tongue a lot. But this last weekend, I thought, okay, this has gone on far enough. This is too much. And I kind of let him have it a little bit. And when we went back to the room, Daryl said, well, you didn't have to do that, you don't have to educate everybody. I said, no, but we've got it. They were just being hateful about Muslims. And I had to tell them, wait a minute, not all Muslims are like that. That is not what people are advised to do in the Quran. And how do you know? Well, I said, because my daughter and two of my granddaughters are Muslims. You could have heard a feather fall. They were just sick. They'd been caught. They were wrong. The Quran does not say go out and kill somebody. The Quran says that if you kill one person, you have killed humanity. It is not something that the Quran tells you to do. But we are now using the Quran to demonize the behaviors of the few, not the majority of Muslims, but some Muslims. We're using that to stereotype and demonize all Muslims. Nathan Rupstein said, prejudice is an emotional commitment to ignorance. Prejudice is an emotional commitment to ignorance. It's the old, my mind's made up, don't confuse me with facts. And we don't want to know the facts because it's easier just to repeat the lies that we've been taught. It's time to start questioning the lies. I know some fine Muslim people who are not radical, who are not fanatics, and I know some good Christian people who are as fanatic as anybody I've ever seen. And they aren't fanatic because they're Christians, they're fanatics because they're ignorant.
I looked at your website, and again, I want folks to make sure they check it out. It's linked, if you're listening to the program at Blog Talk Radio. If you look in the description, you can just click Jane Elliott's name, and it'll take you to her website. But it's JaneElliot.com, Elliot with 2 T's. On your website, you have different information that people can use right on the website to start doing an evaluation of themselves and other folks. I checked out one of the lists, and you said that one way people, I guess, falsely believe that they're working against racism is if they can get people feeling good that there'll be less racism. Why do you think that is, not true?
Oh, yeah, that's what people say. If we could just get people feeling good about themselves, they'd be less racist. Do you really think that people who are treating people unfairly on the basis of the color of their skin don't enjoy it while they're doing it and don't feel good about themselves? This isn't about not feeling good about yourself. This is about wanting to put somebody else down and being willing to do whatever you have to do to accomplish that. This is about maintaining your position of power and doing whatever you have to do to accomplish that. It isn't about people not feeling good about themselves. There's not a doubt in my mind, but what people like Pat Robertson feel really good about themselves. I think James Dobson, feels really good about himself. but he's still doing things that are not good for people of color. I don't think that the answer to doing away with racism is to getting people to feel good about themselves. I think it's getting people to be willing to educate themselves. And you could go to my website and look at that list, that bibliography, and if you really care about eliminating racism or eradicating racism or lessening the amount of racism in yourself and your environment, then start educating yourself. Some people will say, oh, and I've had this said to me so often, I have a degree, I know all I need to know, and I think, oh, help me, Lord, don't let me shoot this person, because I've got an awful lot to learn. But there are so many people who say to me, I know enough, I don't have to. For instance, we, as part of the White House Conference on Children and Youth in 19, whatever year it was, advised the President of the United States to insist that all teacher trainees take 6 hours of human relations training so that teacher trainees would know about people who are other than white when they went into classrooms. The teachers got together and got that voted down because they said, we already know enough, we have our degree.
Wow.
Well, my father would say, well, that's an educated idiot. Quite frankly, because he had no time for somebody who would make a statement like that. If you have a degree, you may have 14 degrees. That doesn't mean that you know anything about how to relate to those who are different from yourself or how to identify racism or what to do about it. It just means that you've got another degree. And degrees are wonderful. I'm all for a degree. I have a couple of those, and, I could have had more, but I decided that was what I was learning was to maintain the status quo. And I didn't think that was a good thing for me to keep on learning.
Wow. I looked at several of the lists that you had on your website, so people could kind of make a personal evaluation of themselves and some of the ways that they think about racism and ways that they think about black people. And you said that, I guess this was for white people, or maybe it's to everyone. You can clarify for us that you should spend time looking at your own racist attitudes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. That is the problem. Racism isn't out there. It isn't just in Watts. It isn't just it's part of us. We live in a society that teaches racism on a daily basis. And if you think it doesn't, take a look at the map. Now, get a picture in your mind of the world map hanging on the wall in your classroom. You got it there? Close your eyes and get it there. You got it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Do you see Greenland hanging down in the middle of that map like a great big ripe plum?
Got it.
Got it. You got it. Now, do you see little South America down at the bottom of that map?
Got it. Got it.
Okay. Do you realize that South America is actually 9 times larger than Greenland?
Wow. Now
you didn't realize that?
No,
you didn't realize that. Don't you think that as an educated, non-white, non-female that you should have known that?
I don't claim to be that educated. I'm still learning, but that is something I think.
Wait. You don't have to be that educated to realize that. You should have learned that in kindergarten. But if all your life you see the map with all the white countries, and on that map, you take a look at that map after this program. Take a look at that map. On that map, you'll see that the white countries of the world take up over half of the map. In fact, the white countries of the world take up less than a third of the map of the world. Now, why would anybody do that with a map?
To practice racism?
Well, to reinforce our position of power and to put in kids' minds a false image of how big their country is, how important their country is. And it works. There are some things that have happened in my lifetime that make me really, really, if you'll pardon my saying, so piss me off. It makes me furious that in 1954, to stop the spread of godless communism, we put the words "under God" in the pledge. And we put the words "in God we trust" on our paper currency. They weren't there before 1954. But Dwight Eisenhower was going to stop the spread of godless communism by doing something that was unconstitutional. And because we loved him, because he did such a good job during the Second World War, we let him get away with that. We should have stopped that. And we should stop what our congressmen are doing in the name of saving the United States from Muslims today. And we need to stop it soon. We need to put a stop to what they're doing. And if you read the book Family, you'll probably be as upset as I am. And if you aren't, don't call me, because I'll have to say something unpleasant to you. And obviously, everyone knows that I wouldn't dream of saying anything unpleasant. I'm very careful about that.
Wow. One of the big things that I wholeheartedly agree with your statements, and you saying especially that racism is a problem of people, and people ultimately are the ones who maintain, expand the system of racism, white supremacy. One of the things that I try to do with this program and in working against racism is to get non-white people to understand that people of color, people of color, victims of racism, to get them to understand that they should be suspicious of all white people as long as the system of racism exists. Do you think that's a logical stance for a person of color? I think
suspicious is a word that's going to get you in trouble. I wouldn't use the word suspicious. I would use the word aware. I think you have to be aware that most white people are not aware of their own racism. They honestly aren't. Nobody's born a bigot. Nobody is born a bigot. You have to learn to be a bigot, and somebody has to teach you how to be that. White people don't understand that they have been taught their bigotry. It is not. People say to me, well, it's just human nature to dislike those who are different from yourself. No, that's not human nature. That's a learned response. So saying that you can't trust any white person, I know that no people of color trust me, and they shouldn't trust me, because when push comes to shove, white folks are going to take care of themselves. They have done that traditionally because that's what we are taught to do. I don't blame people of color who don't trust me. That's perfectly logical. If I were a person of color, I wouldn't trust me either. If I saw me coming down the street, I'd think, uh-oh, there comes one of those, because that's what I would. I swear I would. And I wouldn't be as patient. I do not know where people of color get their patience. I don't understand that. I think there's an X factor in people of color that I do not see in white people. White people, adult white people, in my experience, and I've done this exercise with adult white people all over the United States, literally all over the United States, white people cannot stand for 2 hours what they expect without exploding, and I mean exploding, what they expect people of color to live with for a lifetime.
Wow.
I don't know how. I really admire black women. My heroes are black women, because they raise, for the most part, the vast majority of black women, black parents, raise children who are law-abiding, who are respectful, who are religious, even though we white folks have changed God to make him white, even though we have changed Jesus Christ into a white person, which he couldn't have been. He was born in the Middle East. Mary was a Jewess. She was not white. But we have changed God itself to make white people comfortable. And still, think about that. And still, people of color tolerate us. And they keep sending their kids to school, and they keep telling them to behave themselves in school and to be the best people they can possibly be, for the most part. And they try to do that, and then some teacher, like the one in the UK a couple of months ago, says, I'm doing this because I love you. And then they have to wonder. It says in the Bible, God is love. Is this what love is? I don't think so. I don't know how black women do it. I don't know how Native American women do it. I don't know how Latino and Hispanic and Pacific Islander women do it. I do not know how they do that. And keep encouraging their children to act in a respectful way.
If you were a person of color, non-white person, victim of racism, how would you be functioning? How would you be functioning specifically as it relates to white people?
I'd be in jail.
For doing what?
I'd have done something terrible. Because I know how I felt. I know how I felt. And I'm not advising women of color to do this, because you don't dare. But I remember how I felt about the teachers who abused my children in the Riceville school because of my doing the blue-eyed, brown-eyed exercise. I remember how I felt about them. I wish I didn't feel that way. I wish and now somebody's going to write to me and say, you need to pray. Don't do that to me. Don't bother. Just don't do it. Prayer changes things. Well, let me tell you, women of color, gays and lesbians, people with disabilities, people who have fought in our wars and come back and aren't allowed to buy a house or have a good job, pray and pray and pray. And they're forced to pray, if they're Christians, to a white, blue-eyed, fair-skinned Jesus, which didn't exist, which did not exist. So please don't do that. Please don't tell me to forgive. I remember how it felt. When I'd go home after the horror that they were visiting upon my kids. When I'd go home at night, I drove all 16 miles home every night. I would imagine that one of them was in front of my car, and I ran over him.
Wow.
Somebody said later, and I just felt awful about that. But I had to get home. I had to get home to my kids. I had to release the stress, and that's a terrible thing to admit. And oh my, now you'll think I belong in a mental institution, which I probably do, but there would be many teachers there. Anyway, one day I saw one of the teachers that I had run over in the hall, and I thought, what are you doing here? I thought I killed you. And one of them got cancer and was dying, and I couldn't feel bad for her. And I thought, my God, look how you have dehumanized yourself. This is what happens in a racist society. People have to dehumanize themselves in order to cooperate with the oppressor. If you're a member of the oppressing group, you have to dehumanize yourself in order to get through the day. There are many people who are victims of racism in this country. The perpetrators are also victims of racism. And it's only when they start to realize that their lives are circumscribed by racism, they'll say, we've got to put a stop to this. I don't think that any white child in this country ever lives up to his or her true potential. Because if you're born all right because you're white, you don't have to really put out. And I don't think that many children of color live up to their true potential, because when you get to the point where you're almost making it, somebody who didn't know you were pink on the inside just like the rest of us, seeing you making the grade, can destroy what you have done. And it happens all the time. I remember the teacher in one of the eastern states who said, my kids made the grade. They showed tremendous growth on their Stanford Achievement tests, their end-of-year testing. I showed the scores to my principal because I was so proud of them. And he said, you must have made a mistake. These kids' scores can't be that high. I'll grade these papers. And he took those papers and graded them and gave those kids lower scores. And she said, why are you doing this? He said, we need that class of disabled readers. We get special funding for those people. All that racism?
I believe so.
Yeah, I think you have no idea.
So.
You're 32 years old. You have no idea what parents of color pray for and have prayed for over the ages, and all they want is justice. I think that's what they want. I think when I do the exercise, when I do speeches now, I have a tall white male and a tall non-black male, should I say? Non-female, tall, non-black, non-female person stand beside me on one side. And on the other side I have a shorter, non-white, non-male standing beside me. And I ask, because in this country right now we're saying we should ignore differences. Differences aren't important. We should talk about how we're all alike on the inside. What a crock. Okay. So I say, all right, let's see if you recognize differences. So I have these people stand up beside me. And I ask the group whether they see any differences. Well, of course, they see height. And I ask the person, and that's the male who's tall. And I ask him whether he earned his height. No. Well, is it an award? No. Did God say, oh, I like you, so I'm going to make you tall? No. Does your height give you power? Yeah. Do you enjoy that power? Well, yeah. Okay, so he has the power of height. I say the same thing, do the same thing with the non-white, non-male. And ask her the same questions. No, her height doesn't give her any power. No, she didn't earn it, but she'd sure like to have some. Then they say, well, they also see gender. We go through the same thing with gender. And when you ask a man whether sex is important to him, immediately he starts to squirm. Big joke. Well, yeah, it is. But he didn't earn it, and it isn't an award. It's just an accident of birth. Does it give him power? Yes. So then we come to age. Same thing, blah, 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 blah. The male has power because of his age, but he won't when he's about 62 to 65. Didn't earn it, but he's got it, just because of a physical characteristic over which he has absolutely no control. Then somebody says race, and that really trips my trigger, because there's only one race. What they're referring to is skin color. We're all members of the same race. It's time to start being very determined to make that distinction. So I finally get them to admit that. And then I say to the white male, can you do just about whatever you want to, anytime you want to? Yeah. Can you walk where you want to? Yeah. Can you talk the way you want to? Yeah. You're pretty free, aren't you? Yeah, you're a free person, yes. Ask the black person the same thing and say, does it take courage for you to get up in the morning some days when you know you're going to be treated in a racist way, probably all day long? Yeah. But you have to do it, get up and go do it anyway if you want to survive and you want your children to be fed. Am I right? Yeah. Well then, folks, here's what you have. The last statement in the Star-Spangled Banner. Oh, say does that Star-Spangled Banner yet wave? Or the land of the free, and I point to the white male, and the home of the brave. And that's what we're living with. In this country today, that is what we're living with. If you're a non-black, non-female, you're pretty much free to do about whatever you want to. If you're a non-white, non-male person in this country, you are not free, but you better be brave. It takes courage to be a black female. It doesn't take courage to do what I do. I'm angry. I don't want people to have to be courageous to get up in the morning. I don't want children to have teachers who didn't realize until she saw them that they were pink underneath just like the rest of us are. I don't want that teacher to have a job. Are you glad you called?
Oh, for sure, for sure. I think it's been very constructive.
Well, if you still have any listeners left, you're a good man. A good non-female, I should say.
When I spoke with you yesterday, you shared a few quick thoughts about the film The Blind Side. Can you share with our audience, I guess, your observations on that film?
I just thought that was a terrific film. And the part of that film that was so amazing was when Sandra Bullock is trying to describe to her friends, how she feels about having this young, non-white, non-female person in her home, and their reaction to it. And when she got up and walked away, I thought, I've been where you're going. I thought it was just beautiful. I thought it was a beautiful film. And I think everybody should see it. And everybody should think about it. And think very seriously about it. What would you do if you were in the same situation? How many of us would stand up and be counted? Edmund Burke said, the only thing necessary for the perpetuation of evil is for good people to do nothing. We have the responsibility. Every time we see one of these things happening, we have the responsibility, and as colorless people, we have the responsibility and the power to stop it. We have the power to stop it. It's time to start using that power.
White people have the power to stop the system of racism right now?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have the power to stop it. We've had the power to stop it all along.
Do you think non-white people...
Do you think for 1 minute, if I had been a non-white, non-male teacher teaching in 3rd grade in all white, all Christian, Riceville, Iowa, in 1968, and did the blue-eyed, brown-eyed exercise, that I would have had a job the next week?
Absolutely not.
Do you think I might have been killed?
I would not have been surprised if you had been killed or harmed physically.
Do you think if I were a young black male giving the speeches that I give today that I'd be giving them?
Can you say that last part again, please?
Do you think if I were a young non-white, non-female person giving the speeches that I give today, or making the remarks like the ones that I've made with you for the last hour and too many minutes, do you think people would hire me to do that, would pay me to do that, would allow me on their campuses?
Oh, I am a black male saying similar things to what you say, and people do not want to pay me. I am mistreated. People talk bad about me. I know certainly it would be a strong difference, a stark contrast if you were doing the same thing you're doing now as a black male, definitely.
Absolutely. We're in the land of the free. I'm the free. And you're the brave. Make no mistake about this. I know who I am and what I am. And I know that I've gotten enough notoriety now that they don't want to kill me. And that won't look good. We have to stop being a nation that kills the people that we don't like to hear from. So we're trying not to do that right now. I'm really glad they are. But, they took me out of Uniontown, Pennsylvania at midnight. 3 carloads of blacks did, because I think there were about 500 or 600 teachers. I put through the exercise in a very informal way, and they were so furious that they called the superintendent and said, and these are their words, not mine, if you don't get that bitch out of town, we're going to shoot her.
Whoa.
Whoa. And I didn't know any of that had happened. I didn't know about the anger that was going on. That was the most interesting experience I've ever heard, and those blacks were scared to death, and I didn't get to leave town until the next night because I had work to do all the next day. And 3 carloads of blacks took me to the Pennsylvania Turnpike going just as fast as they could go, scared out of their skins. And when we got to the Pennsylvania Turnpike, I said to Anna S. Cunningham, who's a member of the Human Rights Commission in Pennsylvania, what's going on here? What are these people so upset about? And then she told me what had happened. And I said, oh, my God, those are teachers. She said, yeah, we have to deal with them every day. The next morning, she was with me all day that day, and then she went back to someplace. And the next morning I got up in a motel room out at the very end of the court, and I opened the door, and I looked out, and here were all these 2 stories of sliding glass doors and windows. And I looked up, and I thought, now, behind one of those windows might be the person who was sent here to shoot me. And I backed up, and I closed the door, and I thought, now, you've got a decision to make. This is what Martin Luther King Jr. lived with the last 5 years of his life. Now, you can stay here and be paralyzed with fear and never do this work again. Or you can take that luggage carrier and go to the desk and check out. You can let him scare you to death, or you can go to work. And I took that handle of that luggage carrier in my hand, I opened that door, and I stiffened my shoulders, because I guess I thought if my muscles were stiff enough, the bullets would bounce off. You do strange things when you're scared. And I didn't run, because I don't believe you run because you're scared. I think you're scared because you run. So I walked quickly to the desk, and I got to the desk, and nothing had happened, and I thought, well, you damn dummy, look what you've just done. You've allowed them to terrify you. I will never be scared again. They can shoot me, but they can't scare me to death. And at my age, death is not a big fear. So it would make no sense for them to shoot me now, because if they kill me now, if they try to destroy my credibility now. All those tapes are out there with all those people on them learning about the anatomy of prejudice and the effects of discrimination based on physical characteristics over which you have no control.
Again, our guest for today's program, Jane Elliot. And check the website. You can get those videos. Jane Elliot with 2T's.com, JaneElliot.com. I know I spoke with Mrs. Elliot before the program. I spoke with her yesterday, and she said a lot of times when she gives talks, or I guess does radio programs, that her term was redneck. White people will call in and get, I guess, angry or fuss with her or what have you about the work that she's doing. There's a person of color who had a question he wanted to ask you. Would you be acceptable with a person of color asking the question?
If I answer his and I don't answer any of those others, then I'm discriminating, right? And then people are going to say, see, she discriminates too when she wants to. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, you're okay with You're okay with it?
Yes, but if we're going to get into semantic antics here, I'm not interested. If we're, I'm just not interested in defending what I do because I think I know that what I do works, and I know that what I do works in a positive way. So if you have a question, I'll be happy to try and answer it.
Okay. Everyone heard the warning. I will not be responsible if Jane Elliot brings the wrath, if she's unhappy with your question or feels that you're just calling to badger about semantics. But
I just won't answer. I don't have to answer, dumb stuff I don't bother with. Okay, go ahead.
Okie dokie. There's a non-white male who called in at 404.
There's a what?
Person of color. Non-white male. Who called in at 404 who had a question, I believe specifically about your work. Caller, if you have your question, go right ahead.
Hello, Miss Elliot?
Yes.
Yeah, in doing your research, particularly the experiments when you subject people to mistreatment based on physical characteristics they have no control over, what did the mistreated white people say or do, particularly the white people who behaved as if they desired to eliminate the mistreatment?
Some of them left. A couple of times I've been hit by a white male during the exercise. I've had a knife pulled on me during the exercise. I have had absolutely unbelievable and unacceptable behaviors exhibited toward me because it's very difficult if you have been taught all your life that you're right because of the color of your skin to have someone stand up in front of a group of people whom you want to admire you and say, you aren't smart because you got the wrong color skin, is extremely difficult for white people to tolerate. And so I've had them leave the exercise. I've had them riot. Oh, Lord, we've had riots. We had a riot at the White House Conference on Children and Youth. We put the delegates to the White House Conference on Children and Youth in 1970 through the blue-eyed, brown-eyed exercise, and they rioted, literally rioted, and they had to call in the riot squad to put a stop to it. We had a riot at the University of Iowa because a group, literally rioted, and they called in the campus police came down, and the regent came down and said, they read those people in the next room the riot act. I thought that was just something my mother said, your dad's going to read you the riot act. No, there's a riot act that they read to rioters, and they came down and said to the people in the next room, if you do not stop occupying unauthorized university space, you will be taken downtown and booked. That's what, so people, many times, people who are not people of color have a very difficult time relating to being treated the way they expect white people, people of color, to accept being treated. I've had some really hairy experiences and ugly experiences. The man who hit me, I finally had to get in his face and say, now, you have just assaulted me, and I am going to charge you with assault, and there are 40 people here who saw you assault me. Now, what are you going to do, fool? And he was absolutely terrified because he had, in fact, assaulted me. He went off. One pulled a knife on me. I've had interesting experiences. It's hard for white people to handle what they expect people of color to handle for a lifetime. For even a few minutes, it's difficult for them.
any of the responses you saw from the white people, did you see that any of that would be effective if non-white people used it to accomplish the same goal?
If non-white people used it, they'd be in jail the next minute.
Not the abuse, but I mean, did you see anything that
if that had been a non-white, if that had been a black male who hit me, he'd have gone straight to jail. Do not pass go and do not collect $200. Make no mistake about that. The company would have fired him immediately. This was a white male. They shipped him out to Wyoming for 4 months as punishment. If that had been a person of color, the punishment would have been a great deal greater. No, and people of color trying to react as white people do to mistreatment based on the color of their skin are accused of playing the victim. They're accused of not telling the truth. They're accused of being too sensitive. They're accused of not understanding. Have you heard any of these things?
Oh, yeah.
You've been accused of these things, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Even though those things are happening to you, we accuse you of looking for a problem. Or I get this one a lot. If you people just keep coming in here and bringing up racism, if you wouldn't keep bringing up, it wouldn't be happening. Well, you can't come in and dig up, and they say dig up racism. You can't dig up something that isn't there. The racism is there long before I walk onto the property. And that's the reason they have me walk onto the property. And one of the reasons they have me come in and say these things is because if I say them, they can't be blamed. And then when I leave, they can say, well, that's, we have to have diversity training every year. And so now we've had it, and we won't have to worry about it again for a year. I have that happen all the time. And they say, well, that's just the way she is. Yeah, that's the way I am, because it's the way I am, not the way the system is. It's the way I am. It's called, the Greeks killed the bearers of bad tidings. Corporations
what do you think people of color should do or say to try to eliminate the mistreatment?
Oh, man. Elect people who are people of color. Absolutely support those who are people of color, even if they aren't the brightest bulb in the box, support them, because we need them. We need to see your children of all kinds need to see people of color in positions of power in this country. You won't be a black engineer until you see a black engineer. Get educated. The first thing you have to do is get educated, no matter how hard it is, no matter how tough they try to make it. Stay with it, get educated, get your kids educated, even if you hate the people who are teaching you. Get the education, because that's the way out.
Thank you.
Did I answer your question?
Outstanding. Thank you, caller. Appreciate the question. I thought this was going to happen. Now the phone line has exploded. I do not know if these are non-white people or white people, but there are a lot of people called in. I don't know. How do you feel? Because I had said that we didn't have to do any callers.
Well, I'll tell you, I just have a guest that came to our house for dinner because I thought we were going to be done by 6:30.
Okay.
Yeah. Let me talk to this woman and see if she can wait for half an hour. My husband can heat up the chicken. We got the most delicious chicken for supper. Can we wait for half an hour? Heat up the stuff, please. Okay. Well, you can heat up. Yeah, just heat it up, and then we'll be ready when I'm done. Well, this is really a terrific chicken dish, and I don't want it to be ruined. Now, what's your question? This isn't the way your program usually goes, is it? Do I care?
This is an excellent program. I'm thankful
really?
for sharing some of your time. I hope the chicken does not get ruined on our account.
Oh, no. It's really good. You really ought to try it. Anyway, go right ahead.
Okay.
I reserve the right to say, I'm not going to answer that question. Who do you think I am? I reserve the right to say that, and I will.
I respect that completely, and please, if you feel the question is not relevant or constructive, we'll move right ahead.
Oh, yeah, we will move right ahead. Okay, move ahead. Quit promising.
Let's go. 731, do you have a question for Mrs. Elliot?
I have a compliment. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for your courage, your tenacity, I want to thank the host for bringing you on the show. This is outstanding. It's miraculous. It's healing. And it is just powerful. And may 1,000 angels dance upon your grave and your ancestry for your truth, your integrity, and you are beautiful. Thank you so much.
Well, now you've made me cry. I hope you're happy.
Outstanding. Let's see.
That's a lovely thing to say, and I appreciate it. I really, really, really do.
Caller at 111. If you called in at 111, we can hear you. Go right ahead.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes,
sir.
Hi. I wanted to ask Jane this question. I had watched the video some years ago, and it was with the kids, and it was extremely interesting. And then I saw part of the video where I think it was with teachers or with union members. I'm not sure, but it was with adults. My question is this. Were the adults, were they mad because you had put them in a category of being inferior, or were they actually feeling inferior? The reason I ask is because if I'm, let's say, I have green eyes, and you tell me I'm a brown-eyed, inferior person now, I'm thinking, my eyes haven't changed. I've had a position of power for all these years. Somebody's telling me I'm now inferior. I don't buy it. You know.
Don't care. Don't care whether you buy it. If I say it's true, it's true. And there's nothing you can do about it. And you can argue about it, and you can fight it, and you can disagree with it until hell freezes over. I'm the one in power, and you will either do it my way or you hit the highway. And that's another thing that is extremely difficult for colorless non-females to experience, is to have no power whatsoever except that which will be given to you by the person in charge, who is, when I'm doing it, a white female, and now an old white female, who has no time for your tender sensibilities.
Okay, so
I treat white people, white males, for a few minutes in their lives the way they have allowed me and people like me and people of color to be treated for a lifetime. And it is extremely difficult, and they are angry at the loss of power. This is all about power. White males have a tremendously difficult time dealing with having no power.
Well, I agree with you. My thing is, were they angry because they were put into a category where the power was stripped, or do they actually feel as though they turned into inferior people and they felt inferior? Or did they
turn into inferior people, and they say, I can't think. I couldn't think while she was doing that. I lost my ability to think. They can't spell. They can't spell the word. I have them write 4 simple statements.
No kidding.
Good listeners have quiet hands, feet, and mouths. They can't spell quiet. Good listeners keep their eyes on the person who is speaking. They can't spell there. Good listeners listen from the beginning to the very end. They only put 2 N's in beginning. And they say after it's over, and good listeners decide to learn something. They can't spell decide. This happens every time I do the exercise. They fall apart in front of my very eyes.
You know, I went to your web... I'm sorry.
And I know they're going to because I've done it so often.
I see. So is that...
Hello.
Oh, I'm sorry. Whoops. So,
I think we lost him.
I'm here.
Are you there?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Was it that instantaneous?
It takes no time. Well, it doesn't.
Wow.
It takes a little time because first, when they come, there's a whole list of things that you do in this society to nail down the haves and the have-nots. First, when they come in, you make them sign in according to the color of their eyes. Now, most of them don't know what color their eyes are because they haven't thought about it for a long time, and that's interesting because so it's either brown or non-brown. And immediately they'll say, well, but I don't have my brown eyes. My eyes are green. I say, are they brown? Well, no, but they aren't blue. Are they brown? Well, no, then sign in under non-brown. Can't you read? And then you make them sit down at the table, and you have an ugly green collar, and you put it around their neck. And now they're angry. All of us, right now, they're angry because they don't want to wear that collar. Do I care? I'm not there to care about their tender feelings. They have to wear the collar. Then we send them to a room, all the non-browns, in which there are no amenities. And if they have, oh Lord, I'll never forget the Marine who came up and had a can of soda in his hand, and I took it away from him and dropped it in the wastebasket in front of him. I make them take the gum out of their mouths and spit it in the wastebasket. I rob them of their dignity, and I do it immediately. And then they go to a room in which there's nothing, and there's paper over the windows so that they can't look out and see the pleasant sight outside. And so they're already angry. And in one group, they can turn, and there are only 3 chairs for 14 people. And in one group, they turned off the lights, and blue-eyed people sat around and told dirty jokes. Well, that tells you something about blue-eyed people, doesn't it? And the people who are the guards in the room come to me and tell me this is what they're doing in there, and I say, good, good. Let me know what else they do. And they come and tell me. They rat about. Because that's what we do in this society. Make no mistake about that. This is nothing new for people of color. They know how this works. And they just go around grinning. The people of color by now are just grinning all over their faces because they're seeing people reacting to, as they have reacted, to treatment which they have received. Only in a very limited way, because we don't threaten anybody with loss of their home, loss of their job, loss of their mate, loss of their family, none of that. We're simply insulting them on the basis of the color of their eyes. And that's all racism is insulting people and assuming power on the basis of a physical characteristic over which you have no control. These people are reacting to being offended publicly and on a totally illogical basis. But no more illogical than skin color. Eye color is no more an illogical way to judge people than skin color is. They're caused by the same chemical, melanin. If you got a lot of melanin in your skin, your hair, and your eyes, you have dark hair, dark skin, and dark eyes. If you only have a little, you're colorless. We're treating people positively or negatively on the basis of a chemical in their eyes and their skin. Makes no sense. Unless I do it, and then it's perfectly logical. we have to realize what the parameters are here.
Wow. We had a caller. This is a non-white person I know.
No, this is not a non-white person. This is a person of color. Now, when it's your show, you can use non-white. But when I'm on it, I want you to use person of color.
That you being a white person, this could be racism, white supremacy, where you're dictating what a victim of racism is supposed to say.
No. What this is I am attempting to let members of your audience know that if you can continue to use that term, people are going to start using it on you, and you aren't going to like it. And you're going to complain about it.
White people are going to start using it?
Yep, and you're not going to like it when they use it. It is not going to sound as non-offensive when a white person says to you, well, you're a non-white person. Now think about that. You're a non-white person.
Mm-hmm.
That's like saying, I don't dislike black people. I just think when I see one, I just think there, but for the grace of God, go I. You're going to find out that non-white is going to be used in a most unpleasant way by white people. I wouldn't use it if I were you. But you, as I said before, you're welcome to use it, just not if you want me to respond to your questions.
Okay. We have a young person. This is a person of color, as you say. My term would still be non-white.
This is a non-old person of color. Okay.
Okay. He has a question he would like to ask you, Miss Elliot.
All right. Go for it.
Okay. How is white supremacy better than justice?
How is what? What's the question
again? Huh?
What's your question again? I didn't hear it.
How is white supremacy better than justice?
How is what better than justice?
How is white supremacy better than justice?
How is white supremacy better than justice?
No, I said why. I said why is white supremacy better than justice?
It isn't. White supremacy is a lie. White supremacy is a myth. People are not superior because of the color of their skin. People are not superior because of the color of their eyes. those things ought to be irrelevant. It ought not to matter what color your skin or your eyes are. There is no justice as long as people are treated unfairly on the basis of physical characteristics over which they have no control. Skin color is a physical characteristic over which you have no control. Nobody has the right to mistreat you because of the color of your skin. Did I answer your question?
I think you got that one. We have younger listeners to the program as well. There's somebody who called in at 980. 980. Did you have a question for Mrs. Elliot?
Yeah, how you doing, Gus? This is Thomas.
Oh, greetings, sir. How are you doing?
Doing well, doing well. And how are you doing this evening, Miss Elliot?
I'm doing just fine, I think. What's your question?
No, I mean,
I'm not sure I'm fine.
Okay. Well, in regards to your research over the years, and like you said, this experiment that you've done, which is masterful, by the way, would you say that, you know, when what is the experience? Because at one point, weren't you doing like consulting work? When you did this did you do this with adults as well, to my understanding?
Oh yeah, I've been doing it with adults almost exclusively ever since I left the classroom in 1984.
Okay, and the response, I mean, in terms of the companies, for instance, that you did your work with and you did consulting with, was there a profound change in their practices?
They said there was. They said there was. We didn't measure it, but they said there was. They said it created a different environment. After the people had been through the exercise, it created a different environment in every one of those companies. And if it hadn't, they would not have had me come back. In one company, I worked in one company for 3 years, in another company for 4. And they said it literally changed the way their people treated one another in the workplace.
Oh.
And mostly workshops like this usually have a lifespan of maybe 2 years. This one lasted for 3 years in one company and for 4 years in another. So, and yes, it changed the way people behave toward one another in the workplace. Any other questions? Hello?
Whoops, sorry about that. I got muted myself. Somebody else called in at 111. Different caller at 111. Are you there?
Hotel victim.
Greetings, Mr. 720. Thank you for calling in, sir.
Yeah. Greetings, Miss Elliot.
Well, greetings to you.
I have 2 questions. Are you familiar with the work of Dr. Francis Cress Welsing?
Yeah. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And I have read her book. What's the name of that book in which she describes... oh, my Lord, yes. Yes, I am. What's your question?
My question is, have you had any non-white people that are not as confused about the system of white supremacy, what it is and how it works, and have you had them ask you about how you practice white supremacy?
Nobody has ever asked me how I practice white supremacy because they don't have to. It's perfectly obvious to them how I practice white supremacy. They know full well that I am taking advantage of a situation that need never have occurred. They know full well that I am, because of the color of my skin, able to make money off racist behaviors. They know that. And they know that they must know that I wasn't making money for the first 10 years I did this exercise, from 1968 till 1964, then 1984. That's more than 10 years, isn't it? Considerably more. So that isn't just a matter of making money with me. But I think that racism has to cost the people who are determined to continue to behave in racist ways. And the way you touch people's hearts in this country is by touching their top pocketbooks. When white people finally come to the conclusion that this country is in big trouble. It's going to be in really big trouble because there aren't enough white males being born in this country today to do the jobs in the future that white males have done in the past and are doing in the present. In the future, corporations are going to have to depend on the skills, the talents, and the abilities of women of all colors and males of color. People at the top of corporations are fully aware of this. They know that our population is becoming increasingly diverse, and so they've got to get white folks, colorless people, accustomed to dealing positively with those who are different from themselves. That's the only reason I have a job. Make no mistake about that. And people of color are aware of that, and they are willing to accept what I do because of that fact. I think that's one of the reasons they are willing to allow me to do what I do. Does that answer your question?
Somewhat, and I have one last question.
Look, I have to say one more thing here, though. This was not an experiment. I do not experiment with people. This is a learning experience. John Dewey said we learn by doing. The only way white people are going to understand what effect their behaviors have on people who are different from themselves is to be on the receiving end of those behaviors. This is not an experiment. I do not experiment with children. This is an exercise from which people learn a tremendous amount. Now, your next question, quickly, because my chicken's getting cold.
Yes, how are you received by the non-white, or your term, people of color who participate?
Obviously, some of them say, I'm just another honky bitch, quite frankly. Obviously, some of them say, she's doing this just to make money. Obviously, some of them say, how do you really feel? They don't trust me. They are suspicious of the reasons I'm doing these things. I have to accept that. I wouldn't trust me either. I have a track record. I have put up with a whole lot of nonsense because of what I do. There is not enough money to pay me for some of the things that have happened to my children as a result of my work. And after the first few years of the ugliness, I thought these kids are going to hate me as long as they live. They never have. They are to this day saying, Mom, you did the right thing. We're glad you did it. It's been ugly. And I'm not asking for sympathy. I'm simply telling you that people say to me, well, you just want to get your name in the paper. If I really wanted publicity, it would be easier to get my name in the obituary column. Because they leave you alone. Well, sometimes they leave you alone once you're dead. This is not an easy way to live your life. But I have to get up in the morning and look at myself, face myself in the mirror. And if I have a way to change the level of racism in this country, and I know in some of the people in this country, and I know it will work, and I don't use it, then I'm no better than the racists. And make no mistake about this, I'm a racist. I know I'm a racist. I'm a recovering racist, like I'm a recovering Republican. I can get over both of those things. Racism is a learned response. Anything you learn, you can unlearn. I can unlearn my racism, and I'm working at that. But I have to work at it every day because I was raised to be a racist. I was educated to be a racist. Columbus didn't discover America, he invaded it. Native Americans had a good religion before we came here and taught them how to do it right. The Quran is not as we Christians describe it. And we ran the Crusades for 300 years, killing people in the name of God. We've got a lot to apologize for.
Do you have time for one last question?
One quick one.
Okie dokie. 619, if you got a quick one for Mrs. Elliot, go right ahead, 619.
Okay, I'll try to do it by speaking quickly. Ms. Elliot, even if the net effect of your work over the years has been to speed up the elimination of the system of racism, white supremacy, what, if any, ways have the white people who have participated in your exercise learned to be more effective racists by going through your exercise?
Learn to be more effective racists? They could do that. They absolutely could do that. But you see, these are adults. and that's a choice they make. I am not responsible for the choice they make. If they choose, and I say to them, you can either learn or not learn here today. That's up to you. What you do, what you take away from this workshop is up to you, not up to me. If you decide to be more racist as a result of going through this exercise, so be it. That's on your head. Do not blame it on me. Do not blame the exercise. If you're more racist, take responsibility for your own behaviors. And there is that danger. Absolutely there is that danger. But should I not do the exercise because some white person might become more racist when there's a very good chance that the vast majority of the people in that room are going to be less racist in their behaviors in the future? What would you do?
No, I started the question by saying I assume that the net effect has been positive, but I was wondering what ways you have thought might help them practice racism more effectively as a result of having experienced the other side more directly.
I tell them.
Specifically, what things would they learn about practicing white supremacy?
You can learn from this exercise how to put people down and make them miserable. But most white people don't have to have lessons in that. We know how to do it. We've exhibited our skills in that area for years. So, no, they don't need this exercise to teach them how to make people more miserable. I don't think that is what they do. I doubt very much that that's the outcome. I haven't seen a lot of that. Okay?
Thank you.
You're most welcome. Thank you for the question.
Wow. I think program might have been constructive. I think the listeners might have learned some helpful information about racism today. Do you have anything you'd like to say to wrap up the program, Mrs. Elliot?
I think they listened, and as I said before, what you take away from this is up to you. If you take away nothing but anger and disgust and hatred of me, that's your prerogative. Take away what you want to. But some people will learn from this because they choose to. Some people will not because they choose not to. And that's their responsibility, not mine. Just remember, the next time you sing the Star-Spangled Banner, think when you sing that last sentence. We live in the land of the free and the home of the brave. You'll think about it in a different way. Even though you don't want to in the future, you'll think about it in a different way. And you'll say to yourself, damn that woman. And then I will have won, my friends. Then my afternoon will not have been wasted. Any other questions, comments, complaints? Because if there are, I'm hanging up now.
Can we get you back on the program down the road?
Are you out of your mind? You'll probably lose your job. If you still have a job next week, give me a call and we'll talk about it.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, because I'd hate to have you lose your job because of this, but if you do, hey, you live with the consequences of your behaviors.
I can dig it.
Yeah,
Jane
you and I
Elliot,
both.
Thank you for sharing some of your Sunday with us.
Well, you're certainly welcome. Thank you for calling me.
Thank you. Enjoy the chicken, and hopefully we'll be able to talk to you down the road soon.
All right, anytime.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, goodbye then.
Thank you. Oh, wow. I think that was constructive. I think she had a lot of great stuff to share with us, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to take a quick commercial. We have folks on the line if you want to share comments, questions, or what have you. We'll be right back. I'm going to do Mr. Williams' commercial, and we can share thoughts on the program with Mrs. Jane Elliot. Context of White Supremacy, Gus T Renegade. We'll be right back.
Is racism hurting you? On issues of race, are you unable to speak, think, and act with clarity and confidence? Are you tired of laughing when nothing is funny, smiling when you are not happy, agreeing when you really disagree? At counterracism.com, you can learn specific strategies and techniques to counter the behaviors of the people who practice racism in all areas of activity, using words correctly, following counter-racist logic, even counter-racist science projects designed to reveal what racism is, how it works, and how to counter it. The open source code writing format allows you to pick and choose from a variety of counter-racist suggestions so you can produce the code that works for you. Stop by counterracism.com today and help replace racism with justice.
That's counter-racism.com.
Welcome to the desert of the real.
Peace, family. This is your brother, Hollop, a.k.a. Mr. Holipsis, a.k.a. the Buzz Killer. Tune in to Holipsism's Haven every Sunday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we discuss the social, economic, and political issues of the day with a common-sense approach, an African-centered perspective, and a universal sensibility. Call-in number 347-843-4874. That's 347-843-4874. To check out related YouTube videos, blogs, and show archives, visit www.holipsism.com. That's www.holipsism.com. I'm making it hard to get your Negro on. Hotep, Black Power.
There's something wrong with the world. You don't know what it is, but it's there, like a splinter in your mind, driving you mad.
Context of white supremacy. Gus T Renegade back. Program with Jane Elliott. We have 4 folks on the line. If you all want to share your views, go right ahead. I do want to take 1 minute to share my view of the term non-white. Would have been nice if we could have a discussion around that. As I told her on the program, I suspect that she could have been practicing racism in our disagreement about the use of the term non-white. As a victim of racism, white supremacy, I would not be upset in the least if white people referenced me as non-white every day, and whatever they said. Hey, you're non-white. Get over there to the non-white part of town. That's what they do anyway, really, by the way, when they're saying black and ghetto and all these other terms. I would not be upset in the least. What it would do is make things crystal clear as to who is being mistreated and on what basis you're being mistreated because you are not white. I have no problem. What she said was, it sounds plantation. That was what she said. If you caught the first part of the program, and that's exactly what I've been saying. We're still on the plantation. Yeah, she did. She said instead of listening to Big Daddy, you should listen to Big Mama. That was what she said, and that's I'm in total agreement. That's what this is, the plantation. We should use terms that accurately describe the plantation. If non-white sounds plantation, then I'm for sure going to be using it because Gus is still on the plantation. I haven't found out where you get off the plantation. I don't know where the exits are. Big Mama and Big Daddy have got this on lock worldwide, as she said. So that would be my view on that. If you don't think it's and as you've heard now, several people have come here and said exactly what she said. It gives power to white people. It's self-negating. Dr. Robert Williams and other people have come on this program and said the exact same thing, although they have all agreed, yeah, the plantation of white supremacy does exist worldwide, and they have even been honest about their position in that. Dr. Williams, who said the same thing Jane Elliott did with regards to non-white, said he was a victim of racism. Jane Elliott said, I'm a white person and I'm racist. So they've acknowledged their position on the plantation. So that's all I'm saying. I think it's constructive in revealing that we are in a system of white supremacy and people are mistreated because they are not white. I could be incorrect about that, but I don't think so. But hopefully you can, based on the information that you've heard on the program, you can, come to your own conclusion about whether or not you think the use of the term is constructive in working against racism, white supremacy. I was in the process of opening lines up, and the switchboard crashed, so I think some people are on the line. If you're on the line, just say something.
This is Thomas. Can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you. Is anybody else there?
Something?
Oh, got you. Got two. I think 720 might be the only person I missed. 720, are you there? Yep. Switchboard crashed as I was opening lines up. Sorry, 720. My apologies. But at least we got two of them. Did you all have thoughts or comments on what Jane Elliott had to share or anything else racism related?
Yeah, go ahead, Thomas.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it was extremely constructive. It was kind of actually mind-blowing. I wasn't expecting that level of candor. I was expecting more of the same. So this is my first time hearing her speak. So I was very surprised by the level of candor. She made no qualms about her position. I can appreciate that, because if every white person was that way, you would know where you stand, and that cuts down on the confusion. So I appreciate that.
Hello?
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 Okay, I heard a phone ring. Okay.
I did too. I heard a phone ring. Did somebody else join the line?
So did I.
I don't know. I think, Gus, you better watch out. Blog Talk you might be giving out too much constructive information here, my friend. No, I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna tell you. Me and Vanessa were talking, and it's like when I did something telling people about credit and where they can get low interest rate loans, I started having problems. They gave me a 15-minute show.
Wow.
Not long. I did a show, and I started talking about where to go to get your credit repaired, legally, through who actually creates your credit scores and all that stuff, and how you can go to NACA and get this money, how you can get money. It's like in Detroit, Michigan, for instance, you can get up to $75,000 of down payment assistance for a house. Yes, sir. And when I did the show, they gave me. I literally booked it a week in advance. I had 2 one-hour shows, and the next thing you know, I had a 15-minute time slot that they gave me.
Wow. You couldn't change it? You couldn't go in and make it a
because I went in there and it was like, I called in, I looked, I was like, I did this a whole week in advance, just to make sure I can get the slot. And then they gave me 2 15-minute slots, so I still was able to stay on, but it wasn't streaming.
Wow. I'm not surprised. You should expect that. I guess that would perhaps be a sign that you're doing constructive work. I'm not surprised. I think everybody on the line, I think Ms. Cree and myself can also give our own testimony of strange tech problems we have experienced in attempting to do programs that are working against racism in some manner. So expect it. I'm glad you're continuing undeterred. Keep up the work. If there's anything I can do to promote or assist, please let me know.
Absolutely.
What's the name of the show?
Ujamaa Black Wall Street.
Spell that for me, please.
That's UJAMAA/Black Wall Street Project.
All right, thank you. This has been an excellent show.
Where did you come from, I might ask? Because I don't even know. I'm not upset. I just I heard the phone ring. The person that just wanted the show information.
I'm 731.
Oh, okay. I didn't think I got you on the line. I guess I did. Thank you for calling. Right. Did you have a question for Mrs. Elliot, or were you just calling to listen?
No, I was complimenting Mrs. Elliot for the excellent show and information and the work that she's doing.
Okay.
I'm Dr. Ima Sarah.
Say that one more time.
I'm Dr. Ima Sarah.
Okay. You have a program here at Blog Talk, too. Is that correct?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Gotcha. I've seen your program. Thank you for listening. I'm glad it was of some value.
Yeah, I'm glad I listened because my soul was truly blessed tonight.
Right on. Yeah, I thought Mrs. Elliot, I don't remember, I think it's My Heart is Fierce. That's the handle of the person who sent me a message. With all of her information, Jane Elliott's info, he thought she would be a good guest. I don't know if he's listening now or not. Thank you for the suggestion. But yeah, when I spoke with her yesterday, and I actually woke her up. I called her at about 6 a.m. accidentally because I thought she was on the East Coast. So I thought it was 9. But, I woke her up at 6 o'clock. She sounded the exact same way yesterday as she did today. She said she was, not pulling any punches. She was old. She said she was tired and angry, and she was probably going to offend people in the way that she speaks, honestly. And I said that was no problem. She said she was going to speak pretty openly. I think she stuck true to her word on the show. I think she had constructive things to share. Miss Cree, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, did you
have? I also found it constructive. There's a lot of constructive information. I guess the thing that I think I could probably share a lot of things that I found constructive, but there's a pattern I found curious. Isn't this your third guest, Gus? Your third white female guest who had to leave the show because they were expecting dinner guests?
At least the third one, at least. I know Jessica Pettit, the first time she was on, yes, she left to get lasagna or something, and they have all been admitted racists. At least that I can think of. 3 admitted racist females have all been on the program for 2 hours, but said, I got to go dinner date, or have been cooking in the process of doing the program. So, yes, excellent catch.
Yeah, I found that really curious. Either they've set that up in advance as an exit strategy so that they won't have to take as many questions, or as they might, or there is the possibility, maybe it's and/or, that something I didn't know, that maybe white people have each other over for dinner a lot more frequently. Maybe this is just something. Maybe this is just a custom that they have in sharing information. Maybe this is part of the way that they practice the system. I don't know. But if that's not the case,
well, they do.
Oh, they do. They have one another over for dinner very frequently.
Yes, they do.
Because that would be a high percentage. I mean, the odds of someone planning to have guests over for dinner. Excuse me?
I said all the ones that I know. They entertain quite frequently. Yes.
Wow, because they're planning to do it on a day that they know they have a radio show, and they're planning for the dinner to be right after the show, right? I mean, that's really odd. So that must be something they just have to do, I guess.
Well, I think she did say that she wasn't planning on being on this long. Anyway.
Right, but I'm just saying, like, if I agreed to be a guest on a radio show, I don't think that I would plan to have guests over for dinner right after the show, because it would just be too tight in terms of making sure everything was prepared. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, that's just really unusual to me. And the odds of that happening 3 times seems to be...
Well, I guess they don't have as much pressures as we do, and then I guess after the show they want to share it and talk about it. And have good chicken. She made me want some of that chicken, though. She made me want some of the chicken, but one of the things that I got out of that she said, we need to stick together. You know, that was really important. She said that, you know, when she said not trusting, you know, she wouldn't trust her because at the end of the day, she's white, and they're going to all get together and stick together regardless to what, you know, she's advocating or stating, which would be kind of futile for one to step in the arena with us because we're so discombobulated. We're not going to stick together. You know, we're going to be trying to get up in the hen house with them. So that was interesting.
Yeah, it could be a debriefing session, the dinner, to share what they heard on the show, what they said on the show, to share information with other white people about racism. That could be happening as well. I'm not sure. I don't know. The folks on the line, I guess, how did you all feel about her views on the use of the term non-white?
I guess, you know, it was, like you said, it was pretty overt, her practicing racism, white supremacy, by invoking what she felt was proper to us, versus the difference is when we come up with the term that we are willing to accept and feel comfortable with, and still yet she wanted to superimpose her thoughts on that, on what we believe is correct for us. I think that's just blatant. I mean, she admittedly opened that she's a racist, so I'm not that surprised. So.
Yeah, I thought that she was practicing. I suspected that she was practicing white supremacy because it's one thing to not want to use the term yourself, but it's another. I was actually, I felt her abusing, I felt her using her power as a white person, because it's one thing to say I'm not going to use the term myself, but it's another to tell you what you should say anywhere. I don't care if it's on a sidewalk, but on your own radio show, to stop you every time you use the term that you choose and tell you incorrect, like she was basically with a master-slave relationship in terms of choice of words. She told you what words you could and could not use. Not just that she would use a different word. She told you. She stopped you every time you used it. I couldn't believe that.
Well, she gave a reason why she said that as well. Because the way, if it's thrown back at you, how would you feel? But this is something that I found, and it may or may not mean anything to anybody, but I found that white and black words, the words, are adjectives. And we all know that an adjective modifies a noun. So I went down in Mexican, Japanese, African, not Afri, A-R-I-F-F-I-A-N. Now that's a noun, but African is an adjective / noun. So the correct, for me, this is just for me, I'm not telling anybody how to think. We're all spiritual beings in a body having an earthly existence, because when we shed our skin, there's not going to be any skin color. And so, and we're labeling stuff that has been mislabeling, so we're, carrying on the lie. And I think that it was huge for the fact that she came on and said that God is black, he's not white. And that's something, a lot of the misnomers that have been taught us through slavery and misinformation is going to take a person of another ethnicity to come forward and say, these are lies. So I'm looking at the good, to go in there, and why she said it, the fact that she said it and she brought forth truth is enough in itself for me. And I think that we need the engagement of being able to support, because she was literally saying, well, you support your people. It's just like the president. Other people of ethnicities, they're going to stand behind their people, but we jump the ship and leave them out to sink. If Master's not there with us on deck, then we're not with them. Anybody to stand up. So I think we need to stick together, right or wrong. We need to, because there's strength in unity and in numbers. And so accentuate the positive, eliminate the negative. It's irrelevant to me if she's a racist or whatever. What is powerful that she came on and she brought the truth. And if that's all we leave, come away from this discussion tonight is thinking about her overt plan or whatever, I think that's kind of sad. But that's my take.
I guess my comment would be, I try not to focus on one specific thing that any guest that comes on the program says. I try to keep it in context of white supremacy first and foremost, but in the context of the entire program. Generally, there are a lot of interesting things that people say when they're on the program. I think a lot of things that she said were very interesting. I think her views in talking about how white people have made Jesus white and conditioned non-white people to worship a white image of God, very constructive. I think she had a lot of constructive things to share. But I also do think that I suspect she practiced racism, particularly with her pretty much demanding the use of the term people of color as opposed to non-white, and I do think that's important I definitely want to say I do not think it's irrelevant at all, her saying that she's a racist. I think that's extremely relevant. I'm going to make sure I alter the description of the program to include that. I think that's very important, particularly for non-white people, to not lose sight of that information when they're talking with a white person and being suspicious. She talked about that on the program, that a lot of the non-white people that she has contact with, they're suspicious of her. I think this program has evidenced, and my own observations have shown, that non-white people, in my view, tend not to be suspicious of white people. It's certainly not suspicious enough in suspecting that that white person could be a racist. So I would hope that's something that people do keep in mind, even when appreciating constructive things that she shared. If they feel it's something that she shared that was of value, still keep in mind this person has admitted to being racist. That they did share constructive information, but this person has admitted to being a racist. I think that's very important to not lose sight of that.
Okay, that's a good point. But, you know, we have a serious problem with reverse discrimination.
Oh, hang on. Hang on. What do you mean when you say reverse discrimination?
Reverse discrimination is when we come together against one another.
Wait, who are you? Wait a minute. Who are you talking about? You said
I'm talking about. Well, you know, there was a particular situation that took place. There was a young woman that was a community activist, and she had found a building for the community. She loved the community and the children. That was her main thing, education. And there was a rift, and these were all African Americans in the building. She didn't dot all her I's and T's, so she let another person take over the leadership. The city rented them the building, leased them the building for $1 a year. Some people came from out of town. I don't know where they came. Anyway, it was a lot of dissension. The city was going to take the building back, and this woman, she cried out, and so they had the black city, the black county commissioners come together to create a solution for the problem. Their solution was, which she was hoping to get the building back. She had support. But they came together and they created a chamber of commerce, and they took ownership of the building. This young woman, she ended up dying. And all these people that all of a sudden there was this big interest in this building, none of them prior to this had ever set foot in this building. When she passed away, the county mayor named the building after her. And everybody just went away. So now the building is just sitting there. And it's when we come together, we can't come together and make something happen. We make, what is it, $9 billion that we spend, and less than 1% of that come back into the community. So what is wrong with us that we are empowering other people, and you see it in all the cities, where other races have come in and set up shop. We have none, and we keep them going. And, so I'm trying to figure out what is wrong with that picture. Why do we do this? Why will we not support one another? Why are, our businesses falling down? And why will we not come to the assistance of one another to keep ourselves empowered? We have everybody with all this education, but we have no businesses in our community past a barbershop, a beauty shop, a sundry store. It might be a few clothing stores, maybe, but very few ownership of gas stations, cleaners, laundromats. In some locations you will find cleaners and laundromats, and then others you won't find any.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a very, very serious problem, and I, too, have seen that problem. And I'm sure we're not the only two black people who have noticed that very serious problem. I thought that the guest today, Jane Elliot, may have addressed that, because she said that just in that small amount of time where she subjected the white persons who were in the non-power group, I think that was the blue-eyed persons, in a very short period of time, started to mistreat each other and started snitching on each other,
right.
In order to gain favor with the power group.
Mm-hmm.
So if that's something that they do after simply being subjected to the type of treatment and mental conditioning that we are subjected to for a lifetime, and they just did that after a couple of hours, if you can imagine that black people are subjected to this more than any other group of people who are not white, to a much greater, almost I think exponentially greater degree, in combination with the fact that most of, if not all of the attempts to do that have been met with violence, like Tulsa, Oklahoma. I can understand. I'm not saying it's a correct thing, and it's something that we have to somehow address, but I can understand why under a system of white supremacy and severe mistreatment within that system relative to other people who are not white, why it's happening.
So what's the solution to the pollution? Or is there any solution?
I definitely think there's a solution. I wouldn't be participating in these shows and having my own show if I didn't think there was a solution. Any problem, as Mr. Neil Fuller often says, any problem that is made by people can be solved by people. But the solution is to eliminate the system of white supremacy, and it's basically jujitsu, right? So if they've got, if the white supremacists have decided that they are going to be in control of everything, that means that we make them responsible for everything that is going wrong, for all the problems that we have, for all the bad things that happen to us, including the bad things that we do to themselves, just like you hold prison wardens and prison guards responsible for all the damage that prisoners do to each other and to themselves. So we make them responsible for that. At this point, again, this is just my opinion, and I could be incorrect. At this point, I do not think inside of a prison we can really organize, because white supremacy to me is an open-air prison. I do not think that we can organize clubs against it. What we're going to have to do is use the power of the guards against themselves, and we're going to have to use that to get rid of the system of white supremacy on an individual basis. I don't think that we can do it in groups, because I think somebody else had said this, and I've been talking too much, but if you had 100,000 people in a club or in a group, an organization, and you dismantle that organization, you've dismantled the work of 100,000 people. But if you have 100,000 people individually doing what they do to counter racism on their own in their daily life, not in a club, that really cannot be dismantled. So that's how I choose to address it. But, I could be incorrect. I'm always seeking to learn.
Mr. Thomas, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm here. I'm just listening. I think she's absolutely right. When a lot of people, I talk to some people, and everyone that I know who has participated in the political system, they're very disillusioned about certain things, and they think that by getting together and getting people agitated, motivated, or inspired, and having a figurehead is going to get it done. And I feel like those people are maybe misinformed, because anytime there's no evidence to support that has been truly effective in dismantling white supremacy. In fact, whenever you have that situation, they always find a way to take down the figurehead and dismantle the organization. So I agree with what McCree was saying.
Yeah, I think I watched some of the videos of the exercise that Mrs. Elliot runs, and she does like a debriefing session when the exercise is completed, where she just talks to everyone as one big group. And the group that was mistreated, the Blue Eyes in the study exercise, some of the people commented that when they were being picked on and abused, the other Blue Eyes didn't support them. They didn't say anything. They just kind of sat quietly and didn't respond at all. And they said that that really upset them. They were really upset that the other people who were being mistreated didn't come to their aid and didn't do more to resist the mistreatment. And as Chris said, this is just, in a little study that happens for a couple hours. When this conditioning is going on every day, as Mrs. Elliot said, it starts before you're even born. I think the non-white people, they're just going to be bombarded with conditioning to mistreat one another and to not think well of one another and to worship white people. I think to counter that dynamic as to us not supporting black businesses or efforts that non-white people make, as Chris said, you have to replace the system of white supremacy with a system of justice. I don't think any black business or any non-white enterprise is going to function correctly as long as the system of white supremacy exists. So that's I could be incorrect. That's my view. Yeah. Did anybody? I thought that was real interesting. Her view on the film The Blind Side. I was going to say that I'm lazy, but that's not true because I've been, I think, using my time and energy constructively to do programs and other work. But I have not seen the film yet, so I couldn't really comment about, whether or not what she said was correct or if I disagree. Has anybody here seen that film, or do anyone here have a view on her thoughts on The Blind Side being a great film and working against racism ostensibly?
No. I haven't seen the film. Go ahead.
Yeah, I haven't seen the film either. I don't know. This is me personally. Maybe I'm wrong feeling this way. I feel like the film was kind of insulting. I maybe should watch it just to see it, but I don't get a warm and fuzzy feeling from films like that, so I have not seen it, but I maybe should, so.
Yeah, I didn't want to go see it. I don't want to go see Precious for the same reason. Yeah, because of, I just already know the imagery, even without the words in the storyline, to me, are really clearly serving psychological programming that serves the system of white supremacy. Even if the storyline is just as she says it is, the young male didn't have to be, an obese, slow child. That's certainly not something when you look at the many films where where there are white youth in them. They don't show them looking so unattractive, and yet we're constantly having to be bombarded with that. For the most part, they show white people in the media in their best light, and we're not afforded that. So I found that offensive. But for the sake of counter racism, I'm probably going to have to drag myself in to see it, just like I had to drag myself in to see Avatar. Yeah.
I need to see all of those. I haven't seen any of them. I wish I had at least seen Blind Side so I could have responded, but I know I have heard non-white people express a lot of the same concerns that Cree just shared about The Blind Side, just based on either they have seen the film or the previews that they've seen. I know Dr. Welsing, when she was here, she talked about The Blind Side, and she did not think it was a great work that was combating racism, white supremacy. You can check that out to hear what she had to say. But yeah, I found that very interesting. She said there was another film. She said Invictus. I haven't seen that either, but she felt that was also a great film working against racism. I haven't seen that either. I think that's also out or a pretty current release that she also thought was constructive. So I don't know if you saw that. You can you can share or you can check it out and come to your own conclusion if you think it's constructive working against racism, white supremacy. I am quite suspicious going into the film, but I will at least check it out to see what she had to share. I know there was a non-white person who was listening to the program, and he heard Cree's comments about Mrs. Elliot being racist, with the terms, and he said he wanted to remind you that she did say, this is Big Mama telling you what to say, what not to say. Those are her exact terms on the program. So she seemed very aware of the dynamic of her being a white person telling a non-white person what to say or what to do. She seemed very conscious of that dynamic. I was too, and I hope the listeners are as well. And conscious of her admitting to be a racist. That needs to be factored in as well. I hope every non-white person who tuned into the broadcast, I hope they keep that in mind as we discuss this and say that, we suspect she was being racist in her demands about what I should or should not say in a discussion of racism.
The other thing that I found was interesting was that she said early on that she was shocked when she was a young teacher that when Martin Luther King was killed, she was shocked to hear other white people saying these vile things about him needing to be killed and other vile things about black people. And then later in the show, she said, which I thought was really, really instructive, that when white people say bad things, derogatory things about black people, that they assume that everyone there agrees with them. For you to, and the logic of that to me is that if you can make that assumption, that means that you've had a lifetime of experiences with other white people in groups that confirm that assumption. So then it made me go back to the original statement that she made, that she was shocked that these white people held these views, when surely by the time she was an adult white person, she had heard these things many times and come to the same conclusions, especially in 1968. So I was a little bit confused. It seems to me that one of those two things could not be true. I thought the second statement was true. I've heard a number of white people say that when they are in groups of white people. In fact, I had one student tell me that whenever he is around just white people, every single time someone white says something negative about somebody not white, every single time. So I think the second thing that she said was true. And so then it makes me wonder what got her started, and, makes me wonder about that first statement she made, that's all.
I was thinking about that exact portion of the program. I was just, in terms of what you just said, I think perhaps she was thinking that the white people that she taught around would be more refined and that they would not make such a vile, explicit statement of their racism. Perhaps she expected them to be more refined and say, oh my gosh, that's terrible, that shouldn't have happened. Still being racist, but just, we're not supposed to be running around and celebrating the execution of Martin Luther King Jr. But I agree wholeheartedly. The second statement, I believe that's true. And I clarified and asked her if racists think that if you are white, you're racist. And she said yes, absolutely. And I've had that experience with white people repeatedly, where they said racists assume that if you are white, you are racist. I hope non-white people will function with the exact same logic in the system of white supremacy, that if you're talking to a white person, you should assume that person is racist. You should use the exact same logic because it seems to be true in a system of white supremacy. The evidence would suggest it's true. I think we would make a lot of progress, and that would aid in us understanding why we should be suspicious. I definitely thought that was a gem where she shared that on the program and explained why. I thought that was great because, as I said, I've had that experience with white people before. I don't know if other white people have come on the program and said it, but yeah, it was great to get that recorded, and I hope people will really think about that. Racists assume if you're white, you're racist. If you're non-white, just think to yourself, do I think the same way? And more importantly, do I function with white people in a manner that suggests I think white people are racist? Think honestly to yourself about that in the way you relate to white people, especially if you're in a sexual relationship with a white person. Really think about that.
I wholeheartedly, as you would say, concur.
I agree. Can't argue with logic.
Well, what I want to know, when Martin Luther King, back in the 60s, he did not have the full support of his people. And it seems that we always respect people after their demise. And, you know, with the different holidays, with the intelligentsia that we have among us now today, why are we still accepting 1 month celebrating our history when our history is 360? Without us, there was no history. We created history. So I really find that interesting, and even with the president today. So I'm just trying to understand, because what you all are really saying, because racism serves nothing or anyone, period. And that's the misnomer. And I think if you go and research those words and find out if they're actually a noun or adjective, and we are the cream, we are the gods of the universe, but we're still asleep as to who we are and the power. We're powerful beyond measure. And if we can just give ourselves permission to just stand and don't focus on racism, because I look at that as a deterrent of the bigger picture, but focus on the greatness that we have and what we want to do and what we want to achieve and go about and be about it. But again, to me, the fact that she alluded to the truth that God, Jesus, they're black. And so then if you off into the Christian religion, you off into that white supremacy system deep, very, very deep, because they created it. God did not create religion. And so all the divisions, and then you have to ask yourself, to be intellectually honest, why do you believe like you believe, and where did your belief system stimulate from?
Well, that's a different topic for a different show.
So
you can go on for hours on that.
Yeah, so that's
worthy of a year worth of programming.
Mm-hmm. Why do we think like we think? It came from the supremacist system. They taught us, and we believe like we believe, we talk like we talk, and we act like we act. So we have to deprogram ourselves from all this crap that we've ever been taught. So the fact, like I said, for me, because we're so big in the church, that she said Jesus was black. It's powerful in itself. So why have you been thinking, why did some white person have to come on to tell us that Jesus was not white, that God is not white? Because there's some people like my mother that would fight you about that.
About Jesus being a white person, your mother would.
Yeah, oh yeah. I mean, she said he's white. Because they got the white pictures hanging on the wall. So when you go in, that's scary. To go in what's the term you use, a non-white person's house, and they got a white man hanging on the wall, and a big cross. The whole belief system that non-whites believe came from the white supremacists. It's all about power, conquering, and dividing.
Yeah, I hope this program is constructive in focusing exactly on what you just talked about in terms of non-white people really thinking about why they have the views that they do, why they think about the world in the manner that they do, and that ultimately we're in a system of white supremacy where white people have conditioned and trained non-white people to think like that because it supports the system of white supremacy. The reason that I make an effort to get white people, admitted racists, such as Jane Elliot, Tim Wise, Jessica Pettit, and the other people on the program, is because you said your mother, she would argue if someone came to her and said, you're talking crazy, saying Jesus is a white person. That's crazy. That's blasphemous. It's been my experience that non-white people have a very different tone when a white person... No,
she would say if you said he was black, she have a problem with that.
Okay. It has been my experience that non-white people have a very different tone when a white person comes and tells them information that they don't agree with. When a white person comes and says Jesus is black, that non-white person may argue, but they will have a very different demeanor than if I, a so-called black male, came to tell your mother that Jesus is a black person. I have seen this over and over and over, even if it's Neely Fuller Jr. Or Dr. Welsing saying whatever their view is on racism, white supremacy. If a white person said it, I have seen it has a very different impact on non-white people, which in itself is evidence of how powerful the system of white supremacy is. Just because a white person says 1 + 1 is 2, it has a much greater impact than a non-white person saying 1 + 1 is 2. I hope this program is of some value in that effort in getting white people to come and get this information to help hopefully expedite the process of us deniggerizing ourselves and realizing, hey, these white people have done a lot to confuse how we think about the world and really just to mess us up and confuse us. I hope so. Maybe not. I could be wrong. If it is messing you up, then don't listen. Don't waste your time hanging out here if it's not of constructive value, because we waste, as she said on the program, we waste too much time on stuff that has absolutely no value at all. So if this is not doing the job, don't tune in. You can check Cree's program out. She'll have Dr. Welsing on her show on the 16th at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. Check her program out if this is a waste of time. Or you can go to Dr. Sarah's program, check her out if this is a waste of time. Mr. Thomas, he also has his program. Hopefully the suspected racist will not be interfering and holding him to 15-minute shows. But you can go and support his program and fix your credit. That'll be of some constructive value or other financial tips that he has to share. Ms. Cree, did you want to plug the Dr. Welsing show, which you all are going to be discussing next weekend?
Right. This Saturday on the 16th, we're going to be discussing matters of related to sex under white supremacy, the option of not having children under the system of white supremacy, not birthing them into a system of slavery under the system of white supremacy, just an option. Also discussing the issue of genetics as it comes to black people having sex with white people, whether or not there does exist something called throwback genes, which is alluded to in the film Skin. And the third matter, the matter of the adoption of black children or babies by white persons. And any matters that circle around those topics, so should be something interesting. I hope it will be constructive.
May I have your call-in number, please?
If I were on my page, I could give it to you because I have not.
I
haven't memorized it.
Okay.
I got you. I'll get it. Give me 2 seconds and I'll pull it up. But again, that's next.
That sounds like a good show.
Saturday, January 16th, 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Pacific. Dr. Francis Cress Welsing will be on Cree's program, Counter-Racist Evolving Engineer, next Saturday. Tune in. I'll be hanging out. Actually, I guess I'll be sitting at the ready in case the white people act up again and interfere in the program. I'll have the contact information for support. Hopefully it will not be needed, but I will at least do that so I can support a non-white person attempting to counter racism next weekend.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Renegade.
Not a problem. Least I can do.
Gus!
Let me give her a call-out number, and then you can get it. The call-in number for Cree's program is, page is taking a little while to load. Okay. Call-in number for Cree's program is 347-633-9730. One more time, it is 347-633-9734. That's the call-in number forever, so you can use it next week for Dr. Welsing or any other programs that she has. Lock it in your phone. You can call next week, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing on Saturday, January 16th. Go ahead.
Yeah, how did the compensatory investment request turn out on Monday?
Reverend Chase, he did contact me via email. He asked for more information about the program, about me, what organizations I'm affiliated with, what is my long-term objective. I answered all of his questions, sent him a reply. I don't know, Thursday maybe. I contacted him earlier in the week. He wrote me back. I wrote him again, I think Thursday or Friday. I have not heard back from him. But I do not have my MacBook Pro with the carrying case. I still do not have it in hand. He has not said anything about what he's doing to get the MacBook Pro with the carrying case in my hand. So still waiting. Hopefully I will get that. And again, as I said, not losing any sleep over it. I make an effort to be to conduct myself with some sense when I am hosting the program, to behave and to be courteous with people, but I am not a nice person. I am very victimized and very uncouth. I am not a nice person. All the people that are talking crazy in the chat room, it is only because of my dedication to replacing white supremacy with justice that I do not act a fool and let you know what I really think on the program. But I am not concerned about whether I get that MacBook Pro or not. It is of my least worries. I am losing no sleep over it. August 5th comes and I don't have it. The program will end. I did what I could. Moving forward, as I said again, this program is still #1 ranked educational program at Blog Talk Radio. You don't like what is happening at the cows, get your own program or don't listen. That's what you can do.
Gus, well,
problem.
Now, because I wasn't aware of this. Now, why if by the 5th you don't have a Mac, you can't use a PC? Or I mean, what's
I could. I mean, and people have raised that. Some people said, that sounds like a greedy request to ask for a MacBook. For people who don't know, MacBook Pros are pretty, they're top-end computers, high-end computers. I think a MacBook Pro would be in the neighborhood of $1,300. I am very aware I could get a laptop for considerably less, $300. I think someone said they had a voucher where I could get a laptop for $300. I'm in an area of the world where they have several colleges and universities, lots of students, so I'm pretty certain I could probably get a secondhand laptop here for not that much money. The problem is not that Gus T Renegade could not solve the problem of getting a laptop. The issue is that I'm using as much of my time and energy as possible to focus on the problem of replacing white supremacy with justice. I would like assistance in solving some of my other secondary and lesser problems so that I could focus on replacing white supremacy with justice. I would like a MacBook Pro specifically because when white people do things, they want the top of the line. They don't go out and ask for nickels, or if I'm going to build a house, give me the shoddy cast-off material. They want the best. I want to be able to operate my program having a great computer so that I never have to think, is my laptop going to work? Is it going to log in? Is it going to crash? I want that to be the last worry that I have. I know, if nothing else, my MacBook Pro is going to be stellar. I have a great computer, and it's not going to conk out in 6 months. It's not going to conk out in a year. I want a computer that will be able to withstand my counter-racist effort for at least a good 1.5 years, 2 years. A computer that's not going to be obsolete or raggedy in a couple months. So that's the request. And again, if I'm asking too much, if you don't want to fulfill the request, it's no problem. August 5th will come. The show will end. I'll be doing something else. I'll be listening to Cree's program or Dr. Sarah's program or whatever else I choose to do with my time and energy at that point. I'm not losing any sleep over it. I suggest no one else lose any sleep over it. If you can get it, great. If not, don't worry about it.
Okay, that's one thing. I didn't realize what the situation was. Okay.
No, Brian. The situation again, just so everybody's clear, this program it'll be 1 year next month with no phone, no computer, and no compensation. That's the situation. Victim of racism, white supremacy, and still #1 ranked educational program at Blog Talk Radio. That's the situation. Racism, white supremacy. Yeah. At any rate, did anybody have any final comments before we wrap? Because I don't want this to be another program. People saying, well, they wasted all their time talking about Gus's MacBook Pro. And I didn't even bring that up. One of the callers brought that up. Gus didn't bring that up, and I think if you go back and listen to the programs, I haven't really harped on that too much. I just make sure people know what the situation is and move forward. Did anybody have any other comments or thoughts before we wrap the program up today?
No, it was a very constructive show, and I appreciate it as usual.
Great. When is your next program, sir?
Tomorrow night at 11 o'clock p.m.
What, is that Eastern?
Yes, Eastern time. I forget you're on the West Coast. Yes, East Coast time.
Okay. So that's Monday, January 11th, 11 p.m. Eastern. I guess that's 8 o'clock Pacific, 10 o'clock Central. Mr. Thomas will be sharing constructive information about finances. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Tomorrow night. Check that program out. Dr. Sarah, do you know when your next program is?
It's next Friday at 10 p.m. Central, and I loved your show. It's very informative. It's a good show, excellent show. I came away with a lot tonight.
Thank you for tuning in. I'm glad. I hope it was of some value, and we didn't waste our time on a Sunday.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Keep doing what you're doing.
Will do so, long as I'm able, long as white people allow me to do so. Preparing for Dr. Welsing on Saturday, January 16th, 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Pacific. Dr. Francis Cress Welsing on the Counter-Racist Evolving Engineer program at Blog Talk Radio. Anything else? Oh, did we lose Cree? Oh, man. I think we lost Cree. I'll plug her show again. Excuse me. If we did lose her, it'll be Saturday, January 16th, 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Central, 2 p.m. Pacific with Dr. Francis Cress Welsing, author of the ISIS Papers. Next Saturday, she'll be on Cree's program. Check that out. Cree, did we lose you? Yep, I think we lost her. Check her program out next week. Thank you for supporting the program as well, Cree. Did want to thank the folks in the UK. I checked the stats, and there are a significant number of, I don't know if they're white people or non-white people, but a significant number of listeners in the United Kingdom listening to the cows. I hope it has been constructive. Some of them have spoke with me about programs and ways they see racism, white supremacy operating in that area of the world. If you can shoot me some info of, I would prefer white people. I'll take non-white people, but I would prefer to have some white people from the UK who want to talk about racism, white supremacy. Someone had asked me to do maybe half of a program on racism in the UK. I would love to do a whole program, several programs on racism in different areas of the world. Just shoot me some info. Email me untiljustice@gmail.com. My email again, untiljustice@gmail.com. Would love to do a whole program on that so I can get more information. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll have David Zurin. I think I'm pronouncing his name correctly. Dave Zurin. He is the author of What's My Name, Fool? And A People's History of Sports in the United States. He writes almost exclusively about racism and sports. He talks about, he goes all the way back, Jackie Robinson, Jack Johnson, Joe Louis, Jim Brown, Tiger Woods, Serena Williams. He brings it up to date. He's on his blog. He's writing about Gilbert Arenas and his whole situation. He brought some unloaded guns to a sports arena. He's a black male. But, yeah, he'll be on tomorrow night, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Central. He'll be on to talk about racism and sports. We're definitely going to get into the Tiger Woods situation as well. Should be constructive. I dig talking about sports and racism. You get to see a lot of strange things play out there, but it should be constructive. Author Dave Zurin, tomorrow night, Context of White Supremacy, 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. We will be back. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in and for calling. Again, my apologies, Mr. 720. The folks crashed my switchboard as I was going to open the lines up, so I missed out on getting your feedback on the program. Hopefully you can call in tomorrow and share with us. Thank you, everybody, for checking out the program. Please support Back of the Bus's blog, nonwhitealliance.wordpress.com. Again, nonwhitealliance.wordpress.com. My blog, racism-notes.blogspot.com. Thank you for supporting the program if you found it constructive. Thank you for supporting the program. Hopefully you'll come back and check us out tomorrow and check out Creed with Dr. Francis Cress-Welsing next weekend. Hopefully you'll be doing something to replace white supremacy with justice. Gus T Renegade, Context of White Supremacy, signing out.